Hey there. This show is supported by listeners who have gone to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv. That is a Patreon campaign that provides us with the resources that we need to make this whole network of shows possible. Once again, that is patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv. Check out the different reward tiers. Additionally, we say this in the episode, but I want to make it clear up front. This episode about the Dark Tower movie is not only going to spoil the movie itself, but because of the way the movie is structured and where it pulls things from, it's gonna be kind of impossible to not spoil the entire series. So if you're following along with the books as you listen to the show and you haven't gotten through book 7, this may not be the episode for you right now. If you care about those particular things. I think that's everything, so let's get to it. This is a long episode. Welcome to Radio Free Midworld, a podcast about the Dark Tower series of books by Stephen King and the associated multimedia empire that is sure to rise up around this blockbuster summer release, The Dark Tower 2017. I am Cole Ross, and I am your host, and today I am joined by Evan Jones Thorne.
Hello.
And by Jeremy Greer.
Hello, hello.
Yeah, and we are here to talk about the Dark Tower movie, and we're recording this within a week of the movie's initial release. So it's the Wednesday after it came out, so these opinions are still fresh. In fact, guys, I've seen this twice. Go ahead.
You're a better man than I.
Yeah. I went on Friday and watched it and thought, I'll make these notes later. No, I didn't remember anything, so I had to go back to the theater and watch it again and take the notes as I watched it. So, but yeah, we're here giving our honest appraisal of this. And if you enjoy this movie, if you think this is good and you cannot brook any criticism of the way it approaches either adaptation or the craft of film, then you're probably, if our words are going to harm you, consider whether or not it is worth listening, and then go forth and enjoy the film, because I don't want to take it away from you. Because
or just listen and at me on Twitter, and I'll fight with you. I'm ready. Let's go.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if anybody is angry at the opinions that we are about to espouse, then please make sure to tweet at Cole Ross.
Yeah, I can't take it, guys.
No. Don't put Cole through that. JG Greer, at JG Greer, bring it. I'm ready.
Oh gosh, we've been waiting for this for a while.
I don't know about you guys, but I've kind of been casting this movie for basically my entire life, ever since I started reading this, right? Like it's something up till a few years ago, before that movie got like officially done.
Yeah.
Or was officially announced, that Autumn and I would she'd be cooking dinner and we'd be having a conversation and be like, okay, Aaron Paul is definitely going to be Eddie.
Oh man.
But who's going to be Susanna? Yeah. Like, and that kind of stuff. And,
yeah, and I feel like
here we are now.
I feel like we're at the point now where Aaron Paul might have actually gotten aged out of the role.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, especially with how young Eddie is in the books, age can be moved up and moved down, but he definitely is not. It's not 2008, right?
Yeah.
Like,
no, not at all.
I definitely have some thoughts about hypothetical casting that I think it'd be fun to get into, but maybe we can save that for later on.
Yeah. So I went into this not really knowing what to expect. I wish that I hadn't watched the trailer. And I wish that the trailer didn't show what it showed, because, it just, I don't know how to finish that sentence. I'm sorry, guys. I'm very conflicted about this. And it's I was very conflicted about how much of this we should talk about. Should we keep kid gloves on for spoilers? Not about the movie itself, because we're going to talk about the events of the movie itself, on our quest to kind of understand why this doesn't work as well as it should. But about the series as a whole, because as opposed to being an adaptation of The Gunslinger, which I think we were led to believe a little bit by the trailers, to a certain extent. We have Jake, We have Roland, we have the Man in Black, and no other major characters. That would make us think, okay, yes, that's roughly where this would take place. Good and fine. However, this movie is a smorgasbord. They glean from every single book except for oh gosh, what am I thinking of here? Except for The Wind Through the Keyhole. In order to fill this with a lot of tiny, superficial, dark towery details.
Yeah, I personally, I think that it's going to be very hard to discuss this movie without giving spoilers for the books.
Right. That's where I landed. So if you're listening to this and you're reading along with the show, consider that ample warning. This is going to be a discussion of the Dark Tower movie as it relates to the events of the entire series. This is a discussion of this movie by fans of the series, people who know the arc of this and know where all of these individual details, these baffling details, should fit in elsewhere.
It's interesting to me that I think that's, I also agree we probably need to talk about those things, but also like the stuff that we'd be considering spoilers are so different than what's in the actual books that it's the former guest Sean, aka the lore hunter, he took his wife to see it opening night and she hadn't read the books, and he told her, like, don't worry, the movie didn't spoil anything for you at all. Like, you have nothing to worry about. And that's kind of true. Like they pick and choose like these different ideas and names and places and concepts from, you know, books 6, 7, and 8, and 5, 6, and 7, but don't really do anything with them that the books do. So it's you're left in that situation of, okay, like there's a dude named Roland, but is he the same Roland at all? Like the concept of the Breakers are introduced in this movie, but I don't know that they ever actually call them the Breakers, and I just kind of look at it, I'm like, why even do this now?
Yeah.
Like that's why I'm complaining about the spoiler policy.
Yeah, and what they did with the Breakers, we're getting into too much detail. They took things and they changed them and they made them shallower. And so we should probably address, like, it is unrealistic to expect them to adapt this in such a way that is completely faithful. Books and movies are paced differently. This is a discussion as old as time. So it's probably unfair to hold it to that to that standard. I think that even the decisions they make, if this was just an imprecise adaptation that had things sped up and had things made concessions to make, for the new medium and for the new form, that would be fine. However, this is like an overly eager bull in a china shop that is like that desperately wants to take you from thing to thing and is very insecure about holding your attention.
100% agree.
I mixed my metaphor there. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I don't disagree, but I feel like the reservations that I have about this movie come from the same places, but are different than the ones that you guys came up with.
Yeah. Can you give like a summary or a thesis for that?
Yeah, I mean, like, as soon as the movie started, and I don't want to kind of get ahead of ourselves where we're getting into the events of the film before we're ready to kind of talk it through, but as soon as the movie started, it pretty much tells you that this is different from the books. And they do that by introducing you to Jake Chambers, who lives in a small New York apartment with his mother and stepfather and no kindly nanny / cook / housekeeper.
Yeah.
And
Roll Tide.
Everything's different. Everything is different.
Yeah.
And I kind of made the conscious decision to go through the movie leaning into that.
Yeah.
And Jake's family is different. Roland, everybody, well, not everybody probably, but a lot of people are disappointed that Roland is not played by young Clint Eastwood, which I get that. I absolutely get that. But if this is a different cycle, if this is a different timeline, if this is a different reality, then maybe the Roland from the books was young Clint Eastwood, and this time around he's Idris Elba.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I'm sorry.
And
I'll let you
maybe
finish.
sorry, I don't mean to talk over you, but and Jake's having all these dreams. Maybe those dreams are not visions of the future. Maybe those are memories from the events in the books.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe because we kind of get the sense that when Jake Chambers' name comes up, Walter recognizes it. So there's some connection.
Mm-hmm.
And there, I feel like the movie tried to do something really, really interesting and failed, but not as badly as a lot of people seem to think, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I wish they would have.
My biggest concern is that nobody's going to want to touch this franchise, and we're not going to see where it was going.
Yep, that's the biggest loss for this. I personally am not angry about the changes either to Roland or to Jake's family, any of that. Like, I went into this even expecting those things to be different, and I think that specifically the things around Jake end up being a little, like it's better for film. It comes across, I think, a little bit simpler. It's a little bit more relatable, for people, as opposed to having Jake be this disaffected rich kid. He ends up, being somebody of kind of modest means who has suffered a loss and is, trying to cope with it.
Literally Peter Parker.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting you bring that up, because I was kind of trying to stunt cast the movie, the sequels in my head while I was sitting in the theater. And I was trying to think about who could play Eddie, since the perfect human being to play Eddie Dean is now too old to play Eddie Dean. And I was kind of wondering how Tom Holland, the new Peter Parker, would do in that role.
I haven't seen the new Spider-Man.
I haven't
seen the new Spider-Man, but I really was impressed with him in Civil War, and I've seen him interviewed on TV a couple of times, and I feel like giving him like just kind of a fucked up role would be really interesting.
Yeah. Or if age is a problem, get somebody who is ageless but also fits the profile. Let's get Paul Rudd up in this. Yeah. So it's not that stuff that kind of bothers me. I'll give you an example. The rollout of the purpose of the Dark Tower, the tower itself, the kind of dawning understanding of the role that it plays in the universe and even the entire cosmology of this world. Like, that is something that grows over the course of the series, right? Like, it is the conclusion to the first book to understand exactly what the stakes are for this thing. And then everything around it kind of grows up as like the genre of the series changes from book to book as you get closer, right? This movie, when I talk about this being like a poor adaptation, it starts with a 2-sentence line. Which is the Dark Tower protects the universe. There's one it can be destroyed by a child's mind. Well, okay. Well, that's not really what it does in the books. And also, I mean, maybe kind of like a child's mind, but more like a whole bunch of adults who are psychically gifted working over millennia, unbeknownst to them.
A child's mind technologically distilled into a weapon specifically for that purpose.
Right. And that's a lot of subtlety and a lot of nuance. I don't trust, based on what I saw with the decisions they made, I wouldn't trust them with that nuanced version of it, because they would just cut to the next thing, after the scene had lasted for 30 seconds.
Yeah. And I have no argument there at all. Like, I liked this movie, and I hope against hope that there gets to be another one. Mm-hmm. But I don't disagree with any of the criticism. Yeah.
No, I'm not like railing at you for enjoying this, because there are parts of this that I really enjoy.
I really liked just kind of the idea that, because I mean we're kind of the teaser that got leaked of the Horn of Eld way early on. It kind of gives the impression
Stephen King tweeted about.
Right.
Just to throw that out there.
Yeah. Well, like I think it's a safe assumption that the idea behind the movie franchise is that this is the last cycle.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's very, very safe assumption to make.
It's even,
and I think
it's even alluded to by the Man in Black in the movie.
Exactly, and that's exactly what I was going to say. Is I did really, really love clean cut, scary as fuck Matthew McConaughey. I thought he was fantastic.
Yeah.
And I really thought it was interesting how they had him kind of more aware of what was going on than anybody, including the audience, or even like there's not really a way to have like a third person omniscient character in a movie. Mm-hmm. Like that doesn't really work. That's not really a thing. but you kind of get the impression, at least if you've read the books, that he knows a lot more about what's going on than anybody else does. And I kind of in my head, like the way that I was interpreting it was everybody is different this time around. It's 2017. Jake's family's different. Roland is now Idris Elba, et cetera, but Walter is Walter. And I kind of get the feeling that he is the same. He remembers all the previous cycles and he knows what's coming and he is trying to do something. Because it's been a while since I've read the last couple of books. Walter wasn't trying to destroy the tower in the books, was he?
Oh, like he wanted to seize its power for himself.
He wanted to take it. He didn't want to destroy it. And the Crimson King, we in the movie we see the All Hail the Crimson King graffiti. The Crimson King, his whole thing was he was like covetously protecting the tower.
Oh, he wanted to take it down. Like he wanted to usher the Prim in.
Right, but he was protecting it against those who wanted to take it from him until he was able to destroy it.
Right. Like he ended up getting trapped was the was the problem.
Yeah. And so there were some subtle changes that I really, really liked, and that's what made the shortcomings of the movie so much more heartbreaking.
I really wish that they would have leaned into the fact that this, like a lot of this has happened before. I wish they could have played that up, and I can see a version of this that probably did do that. But that was probably focus tested away because, part of the production process for this and part of why it was delayed was people watched it and they're like, wait a minute, I'm confused. Like he's a knight, but also a cowboy. Like, why would he want to kill this man? And so like I could see them adulterating the actual thing.
Well, I mean, he's a knight, but also a cowboy. Like, I don't know, Jackie Chan and Owen Wilson pulled that off.
We should let's get a little bit of like biographical information about the movie out of the way, and then get our hands dirty here.
Yeah, we've kind of just been going into it. Let's
So it's been in development for about 10 years. This passed through at least two other potential directors, higher profile directors than who we ended up with. Initially, J.J. Abrams wanted to do it after Lost ended, which would have been different. And then Ron Howard picked it up a few years later.
I am as happy that J.J. Abrams passed on it as I am devastated that Ron Howard did.
Both of them would have given it a very different kind of approach.
I like J.J. Abrams.
I think J.J. Abrams would have at least left a little bit of the mystery of the series intact, and not just kind of splooged it all over the screen like this movie did.
Yeah,
that's true. I have nothing against J.J. Abrams. I really like a lot of his stuff.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jeremy, that J.J. Abrams would have let the mystery, whereas Ron Howard, I think, probably would have played up some of the humanity of the characters a little bit more.
Yeah, and I think that the humanity of the characters is what I missed the most.
Yeah. Well, they don't have time. There's no time for them to be human.
Well, and there could have been.
Yeah,
that's the thing that sucks the most is that like if I really no, just I have so many shoulda, woulda, couldas that I kind of just want to wait until later when we're doing that.
Yeah, don't worry. So there's also been kind of this long cavalcade this parade of people who almost played Roland. Any of them, I think, would have done just fine jobs, right? You have Javier Bardem, you have Viggo Mortensen, both of whom I think would have been fantastic. Russell Crowe, a little bit out of nowhere. I don't know if I'm as into that. And then our good friend Liam Neeson's doing a little bit of an older, a little bit of an older take on it.
Liam Neeson would have been really interesting.
I just want to see the Liam Neeson, the Taken Dark Tower mashup. Like, you have taken my tower, I am coming after you.
Oh my gosh! When he punches out the wolf,
skills. They all involve bullets.
He punches out the wolves of the Kaya, yeah, or Kala or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't really know Javier Bardem that much, but that would have been interesting. Viggo Mortensen would have been fantastic. Russell Crowe, I always feel like I don't like Russell Crowe that much, and then I see him in a movie and I remember that he's just one of the best actors living today.
Yeah.
As troubled as his personal life has been, and as abysmal as his music career is.
I didn't realize he had a music career.
Oh, friend, I got some links to send you.
I think of these guys, I think Viggo Mortensen would be the one I would be most jazzed for.
Yeah, I agree. Liam Neeson, a pretty tight second.
No. Jeremy, how about you?
I'm a Javier Bardem fan. So when that rumor first started kind of circulating, I got extremely excited just because he has this kind of brooding, silent, kind of presence that I think that would really fit Roland. He's if anything, he's probably like physically too big, but obviously that doesn't really matter in the movie that much.
I always
kind of pictured
like, Idris Elba's a fucking slab of a man. Like he's a really big dude.
Exactly. I had to look up who Naomi Harris is for Susanna. I have no idea who this person is.
Yeah, she played Moneypenny in Skyfall. She was also in Moonlight, if you saw that. Just a very well known black actress.
Yeah, I think she would have been great.
Yeah. I mean, like what we're talking about is the idea that, like, I guess early drafts of this had more to do with the broader cast. So like there were casting rumors for Susanna and Eddie. So Naomi Harris for Susanna, and then Aaron Paul. You know, like I think like Ron Howard talked to him about it, and like Aaron Paul was over the moon. Like he's wanted to play Eddie forever. Like he's a big fan of the series.
Yeah, no, I remember that because it was Ron Howard was at that point signed on to direct, and Aaron Paul was tentatively signed on to play Eddie if the film got greenlit, and then it all just fell apart. And I was very sad.
Yeah, well, like Stephen King, you know, he's a huge fan of Breaking Bad. Like he also said, we need Aaron Paul to play this role.
What I hope they do if they get a chance to do another movie in this series is I really hope that they give Aaron Paul the part of Henry.
Oh yeah, that'd be very good.
Yeah. Because I don't think he could pull off Eddie, but oh man, he would be super, super good as the great sage and eminent junkie.
Yes, he would, playing to type.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man. So the final cast ended up being Idris Elba as Roland, Matthew McConaughey as Walter / the Man in Black, MIB himself, and a newcomer, a young actor named Tom Taylor, British actor, I think, as Jake Chambers. And I think in general, this casting works pretty well. I wish that there was a little bit more energy to the performances in general, outside of Roland, who I think Idris did a fine job as Roland. But this is not where the problem is.
They didn't give Roland a lot to work with.
Right.
I think out of the three, Tom Taylor is probably the worst out of the three. I didn't find him particularly emotive at all. Like there's scenes where like specifically where like he's dangling off a cliff and like he screams, and I'm like, okay, like you're definitely doing that on like a 4-foot drop in front of a green screen, man. You're gonna need to act a little bit if you're gonna be an actor. And this may be controversial because Evan said you really enjoyed his performance, but all right didn't really work for me in this movie at all. I don't know if it's. And I've had this since the very first trailer came out, the very first official trailer come out, like just a little bit too smarmy, a little bit too over the top, a little too slick, which is never what I really thought Walter was for some reason. And I just, and not even anything to do with like he wasn't like the book Walter or anything like that. I just didn't really like his performance. I thought Idris Elba did a great job with Roland, though. I thought I could watch more movies where Idris Elba shoots guns at people. I probably will.
Yeah,
because it's 2017. That's what movies are about nowadays. So.
Idris Elba does a very good job of acting stoic, but presenting the fact that his character is in pain. You know, like I just there are a lot of just he sells the action well. Like there's something about his facial expressions or just his general carriage, you know, in like during certain parts of these fights where it really comes across that he is, you know, at the edge, but still deadly competent.
And if you like that kind of stuff, go watch Luther, because man, Luther is basically that for 45 minutes over like 15 episodes.
And see, I haven't watched Luther. My mom and my brother both swear by that show, and they tell me that I should, and like that and The Wire, and there's so many like really intense shows that I keep meaning to watch, and just haven't had the fucking mental fortitude for, I guess.
The Wire's a big ask. It is a wonderful show, but like you have to have some energy in you for a project.
Yeah, but I really like Idris Elba in a general sort of sense, and I thought he absolutely crushed it.
Yeah,
like I have absolutely no complaints with his performance as Roland. The closest thing that I can come up with, and I had to look up the Wikipedia page because I did not know the actor by name, but Dennis Haysbert was Stephen Deshane, and he was fine, but the whole time I just wished he was Lawrence Fishburne.
Old Larry Fish, yeah.
When you like, Google him, pictures of Lawrence Fishburne turn up. So that's got to be.
Oh, that's amazing.
That's gotta be really good for his ego. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll be honest. I kind of thought it was Lawrence Fishburne. Like I know that makes me sound kind of racist, but
no,
he's not in the movie very long, and it's pretty dark. So
he was the president from 24. Like I knew him as President Palmer from 24. Like he's awesome. Like I do like him. I just didn't know his name off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But oh man, how ridiculous would it have been if they just cut to that scene with Roland and his father like squaring off against an unseen enemy that they know is the Man in Black, and it's just fucking Lawrence Fishburne, just Cowboy Goddamn Curtis.
Yeah. So Stephen Deshane was a late addition to this. Like the movie tested poorly in general, and they're like, wait, why does Roland want to kill Walter? Seems like a pretty good guy, you know. When he speaks, people act. And they're like, no, so we need to give him a more personal motivation. And in the books, you know, obviously we've talked about this. There's a very personal motivation. I think for the movie, it would have sufficed for them to just say like, oh, the Man in Black is the cause for like his kingdom falling. Like there are plenty of reasons for Roland to not, to not be totally down with this dude.
Yeah, I mean, even just like, you know, hey, I need to find the tower. This guy knows where the tower is because he's sending psychic children brains against it or whatever. Like, just that kind of like, you know, he doesn't actually want to kill him. He just wants to chase him down and, you know, torture him for information, 24 style or whatever. Like, I think that you could have done that. It's really difficult to talk about this movie at all without going into the woulda, coulda, shouldas. Like Evan mentioned, like, every single part of it could have been better, and it seems like it could have easily been better.
Yeah. Like,
which makes me think that other people had these thoughts too. Like, I'm sure people that worked on this project, they weren't all studio executives, like, right? Like, they probably had actual creative people working on this that just got stonewalled at every turn to try to make this movie better.
Yeah, and like one of the weird things is, it's obvious that the people who made this know about the Dark Tower and like it. I mean, to me anyway.
And, like and at least spent some time in the Stephen King universe. Like that, there's so many references to like basically every single one of his books.
Oh yeah, at least all the ones that made it into movies. This movie is a fucking Easter egg basket. Like, I want to backtrack just a little bit to the Matthew McConaughey thing. I think he's okay. I agree, Jeremy. He's a little bit too smarmy. I want him to be a little bit less dignified. I want him to be, let's say, Rust Cole in the present day parts of True Detective, as opposed to Rust Cole in the flashback parts of True Detective. I want him.
I disagree.
Okay.
And maybe that's just my own headcanon, but like I have always kind of imagined the Man in Black as being like unhinged but superlatively composed.
Yeah.
And so Matthew McConaughey in this movie just fucking did it for me.
Yeah. I just in my head, like Walter's establishing character moment is the scene with Nort, right? Where he, does flips and jumps over the body and basically speaks directly to the reader as he brings this corpse back to life. There's very little dignity in that. I would have liked to have seen him bring a little bit more glee to it, No,
if you can do me a favor and cut in from, I think it's the very first episode of this podcast where I say that I can't wait to see Matthew McConaughey do that.
Yeah.
Like I like that, but like what I was picturing was this incredibly composed but under the surface totally unhinged, like fucking magical psychopath.
I think to accomplish that, he took a shortcut and split the difference and just landed on Sleepy a little bit. Like I wish that more of it would have been the scene when he was cooking the chicken.
Yeah. And that's what I keep coming back to. Like, man, I liked so much about this movie, but the shortcomings really make me worried that we're not going to get to see where they're going.
No.
And I feel like Matthew McConaughey,
more of this.
Right.
I feel like there's a chance, but not a great one.
Yeah. It depends how this does overseas.
Yeah.
Not to sound like a fucking pundit or whatever, but like,
like that realistically. Yeah. That's what it comes down to, which I mean, I just wish that they'd done a slightly better job with what they had and what they were going for. But I feel like they could go to some really interesting places with this. And I would hate for this to be the kind of film franchise that just languishes and falls apart.
Yeah. To be another like Percy Jackson and the Tale of the Olympians or whatever.
Yeah. Like it would just really bum me out. Like,
yeah, another Jumper. Yeah,
there's Jumper.
Hey, hey, wait a minute.
Wait, I understood. I've never seen the movie. I am led to believe the movie was not very good.
It's great and bad. It's a better bad movie than The Dark Tower is a bad movie. Let me say that.
I take that back. Jumper. I actually really did enjoy Jumper. It is a very good bad movie. I was thinking Next with Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, Next is a bad movie.
Yeah,
but like
fuck that movie. Jumper is
Jumper
right.
and like Wanted are like two ridiculously great bad movies in my mind.
I'm still kind of amazed that Wanted hasn't gotten a sequel yet.
Is there more source material for them to work with?
Was there source material originally?
Bullets. Who cares? That's all you need to know. They can curve bullets. It's great.
I suppose.
I watched that movie when I was 21 or 22 in college with a girl that I kind of had a crush on who said it was her favorite movie. And I pretty much set myself up to just like grit my teeth and say it was great. And then I had a much better time than I expected.
I was about to say, you set yourself up for 2 Christmases of getting nothing but Wanted merchandise. Yay. A standee.
I know we're way off topic, but you guys have seen the poster for the Wanted movie, right? With the weird Angelina Jolie thumb.
I'm looking for it now.
Just go to the IMDb page and it's right there, and like look how she's holding this gun and how physically impossible that is. It is hilarious.
Oh geez.
And I don't know how it's lasted this long. It's been like almost 10 years now. You still haven't fixed this.
There's no money in fixing things. Weird.
That's true.
Yeah. So I want us to give at least a little bit of like a summary or a thesis for kind of a like a broad overview, but I want it to be kind of limited, mostly because I want to get this point out. And if you guys want to follow suit, you can. I think that this is a mess of a movie, and I think that it is for reasons that extend deeper than just whether or not it is a good adaptation. We're going to get into that in details. There's no place to really talk about the way it fits together as a movie, because we're going to talk about some of the events that happen in this. And sequence, like this podcast is definitely going to be longer than the movie itself. You know, I was kind
it
of
already is.
yeah. I was excited. I was excited when I found out it was a 90-minute movie because hey, they don't make like action movies like this clock in at less than 2.5 hours anymore. Like, just they're so bloated, and Marvel is taking it as like, just way too much. So I was like, oh my gosh, like a fun, fast kind of thing. I expected them to cover less ground and do it more leisurely. No, the problem with this movie for me is the pacing. It is completely breathless. It doesn't let anything sink in. And even though sometimes that works in its favor by getting you to the next thing if the thing you're on is not particularly great, it undercuts some of the stuff that does work. So some of these shots that show the destruction of Midworld, you know, these awesome outdoor locations that they found, these vistas, you know, those pass by in the blink of an eye. There's no time for any of the emotional beats to set in. Like, it gets in the way, I think, of this being, you know, so bad it's good, or a good bad, you know, kind of thing. And that, I think, is the primary sin of this. They didn't see fit to actually simplify this and cut it down. They just went beat in a way that really harmed the overall product. So
I agree.
That's my thesis.
I completely agree. Like, you never have time to just sit there and think about who Roland is or what he's doing, why they never give you time for a relationship to develop between him and Jake. And towards the end of the movie, he's just like, okay, come with me. You're my kid now. And that's really bad. It's really it. Wherein, you know, and again, it's hard not to talk about the books, because books have much more time to develop relationships. But, you know, movies can do that as well. And they just did not do that at all. And then, and I've talked about this before already, but like the cherry picking of stuff from the end of this series to put in the first movie is a very odd decision to me if you're going to make a franchise. Mm-hmm. Like, if this is going to be your Dark Tower universe, your Stephen King U, or whatever you want to call it, why are you giving so much away? Like, to go to that Marvel example, like, they didn't start with the Infinity War. It would have made no sense whatsoever. Right. And imagine if they had tried to make the Infinity War with 18 characters and make it 95 minutes. Mm-hmm. And like, it would have been impossible. You wouldn't have been able to understand it. And that's where I think this movie fails.
To be fair, DC has made a lot of money doing pretty much exactly that, so it's not impossible.
But they've only made one good movie.
Have they?
Wonder Woman.
Oh, I haven't seen that one yet.
Yeah, that's good.
Because I have a child.
Wonder Woman is the thing that makes up for all of that, for all of the modern DC stuff.
Yeah, I forget about Wonder Woman because I haven't seen it yet, because Dark Tower is the first movie that I've seen since I want to say Rogue One.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
I mean, the first one since the first one in the theater since your kid was born.
No, like Rogue One was after that. Like, okay. Rogue One was last year, I think.
Yeah,
it's August. It's August. I've only seen a movie last year.
This is the most I've gone to a theater, and
I feel like I've seen a movie in 2017, but I don't. Did Civil War come out this year? Probably not.
That was last year. It was last summer. Yeah.
Oh yeah, 20 something.
Yeah, one of those.
20.
But yeah, that's a good point, Jeremy. I was actually thinking about the Dark Tower as like the Avengers of like the Stephen King-averse.
Sure. Yeah. And it again, like, going back to my point of why are you burning so much material in your first movie to start your franchise? Like, and I'm not saying you needed just to do the Gunslinger, although I think that there's a universe where an adaptation of the Gunslinger exists, and it's probably an amazing movie. Like, that's some weird art house film that everybody loves, right? Like, it's probably really, really cool.
Yeah.
But I don't think that kicks off a franchise either. So don't misunderstand me there. But just all of the stuff from the end of the series that we have to dance around when talking about it for, you know, the people that are following along with the podcast with the books, just makes no sense to me. Like, you could do these things. You could make Walter a threat without showing exactly why. Like, he could just be a vague threat. And that's, to me, that's what it ruins. Is it ruins all of this extra potential that this entire series had. And I want to see these characters on the screen. I think that, excuse me, I think there's people out there like my sister who has tried to read The Dark Tower and bounced off of it, really wants to see this movie because, you know, she's heard me and her dad talk about it so much.
Wait, what now?
Like, now this is trash.
Dude, Jeremy, I don't know how to tell you this, but I think you need to get a new sister.
because she hasn't read the Dark Tower.
I mean, tough
people
break,
are allowed
man,
not to
but
like things.
I don't. I generally agree, but I mean,
well, she's tried. I think that's what matters.
Yeah, does it though?
Yeah. What's your kind of thesis, your approach, your small paragraph on this?
I'm sure your sister's a lovely person. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Evan. Like, what's your kind of couple sentence?
I think that I've seen this phrase thrown around a lot, and I wish I had something more interesting to say, but it's an interesting failure. And I think that what it tried to do is so much cooler than what it actually did. And I feel like there were glimpses throughout of what it tried to do. And I just kind of kept finding myself wishing that it had been in more capable hands. And I was trying not to have like Ron Howard bias, but yeah. I mean, like there were so many, like I've got like the notes. I'm the type of nerd that brought note cards with me to the theater and took notes in the dark. Like there's so much cool stuff that I really liked, but looking at these notes and then thinking about the movie itself, like as much as I really did enjoy about it, it didn't work.
No. And
it sucks because it was very close to working.
Yeah.
And well, I don't like one of my favorite movie, like I have a note in like from in the theater when the very first time you hear Roland fire his guns. Just like the note that I have is sound of guns -- all caps fuck. Like it is intense and huge, and like I feel like had it been part of a better movie, that could be like an iconic cinematic moment.
Yeah.
And it's just not.
Yep. And it probably won't get a chance to be because it didn't do well critically, commercially. It did better than I thought it would. Like it's made about $30 million at the point we're talking, which is about half of its budget. But it's not enough to like get goodwill, and Sony doesn't have their shit together and haven't had their shit together movie-wise for a very long time, you know. And like King has been very enthusiastic. Like he's talked about like the next movie he would want it to cover the drawing of the three to introduce Eddie and Susanna and get them, you know, closer on the way to getting to the Dark Tower, as opposed to, you know, just staving off this threat. So the real shitty thing here is a death of opportunity and a death of possibility potentially. Yeah. So let's get rolling here with the events of the film. I've taken some very light notes on this. It's kind of more bullet pointy than usual because this is not like a total death march of a movie. It is, you know, there are moments of joy to be found, and I want to acknowledge them when they're here. Speaking of a moment of joy, the fact that it opens up on the Tet Corporation logo.
Oh yeah.
How's that for a cut? I love that. And so let me characterize the way this experience worked for me. I was the only person who was like laughing out loud when I saw these things. So like the Tet Corporation logo comes up, I'm like, and then I was very self-conscious because nobody else in the theater was reacting. I'm like, wait, don't you guys know what that? Look at the turtle. See the turtle of enormous girth?
There's definitely a lot of like elbows hitting one another between me and Autumn during this movie, just because, like you mentioned, it's just an Easter egg basket full of stuff, and it like there's so many things, and then they just go by like there's no reason for them to be there almost. You mentioned something earlier where they take these things and they make them shallow, and shallow is a good word, and it's almost like they make them hollow. Like they just have no meaning. They're literally just symbols that they're putting on the screen for book people.
Yeah.
So I have to wonder, like, if you're not a book person, and you just went to this because it's the movie that's out this weekend. Like, you see this logo, what are you even thinking? Like, oh, that looks cool. Like, they don't really talk about it or explain anything.
It's presented as part of the production logos at the front, like it's after Imagine and whatever. So I would just see them thinking like, oh, I've never heard of that company. I don't think anybody would have like paid attention to or drawn like notice to it. What I will say about those references, about those wink, wink, nod, nod kind of things, they're generally very quick. Especially the stuff to other Stephen King works, like the camera just passes over them. Like there is a momentary shot of a Saint Bernard. I'm like, hey, that's Cujo.
Yeah. I there was some for all its faults, I feel like the fan service in this movie hit just the right level of subtlety.
Yeah.
And that's
Man,
again like. Again,
I don't mean to interrupt, but man, like, no, there's nothing subtle about it. Like, there's literal pictures of the Overlook Hotel. Like, I mean, there's no subtlety about it whatsoever. Like, they hit you over the head with it.
Yeah. See, I don't know. Maybe I am too casual of a King fan, but like, I felt like not all of it. Like, some of it was obviously way over the top, but like there were some definite fan service nods that. Like the cut to a Saint Bernard, and I actually thought the picture of the Overlook Hotel was kind of cool. And the note that I have from when that happened was, is the 80s Shining canonical?
Like, you mean the one that King directed?
Yeah. Like, is that canonical in this universe?
Yeah. So there's a spectrum that this could have taken, and I think that in some ways everybody's right, because I am desperately averse to conflict. No, when I say that it passes by unremarked upon, or when we talk about it possibly being subtle, there's a version of this where that picture of the Overlook could have fallen down in the beamquake, and the psychologist could have bent down and said, "Hey, look at this! I vacation here. This is the Overlook. I heard about some fucked up stuff that happened there." You know, they could have definitely drawn a lot more attention to it and spent a lot more time on it than they did.
But I mean, they literally talk about Jake Shine. Like, I mean, which is basically the therapist picking up the Overlook and saying, "Oh yeah, I knew a kid that had the shine here. You were kind of like him." Like, I mean, I'm not, and Evan, I'm not trying to attack you or anything. And look. Autumn makes a joke a lot of times when it comes to these types of things. She says, "I'm a fan and I like to be serviced," and that was a good fan service. Mm-hmm. And I agree with a lot of that. And I'm a huge Stephen King fan, but like, again, it's just images, and it's a 95-minute movie, and they just crammed it full as much random stuff that has nothing to do with the actual story of the movie. Yeah. Like, why are we at the amusement park with the it guy? You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
They make a joke out of that. So
they do.
I don't know. None of this works for me. I don't want to be the Dark Souls 3 of this.
I guess I feel like there was a lot of it that didn't work for me, but what did I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
And I felt like a lot of the fan service was really on the nose, but when it worked, I really enjoyed it. And what I wish that they'd done more of was I wish that there'd been less like general, all-encompassing Stephen King fan service and more like Dark Tower stuff. Because like one of my favorite lines, and like I have this in my notes, is when Walter's talking to Roland and he says, "Tell the boy what happened last time."
Mm-hmm.
Like, fuck. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stuff like that. The note that I have underneath it is "evil Fitbit," and I don't remember what that means.
Oh, that's the psi meter. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. These notes are largely unintelligible. They were written in the dark, and I could not see what I was writing on.
I got you, fam. We should probably get moving because we're about 2 seconds into it. The movie opens up with a dream sequence. After we get that little summary about the purpose of the Dark Tower, which is what the entire series is about learning. A dream sequence at the Divartois, the Blue Heaven, right? The place where they have taken the children in order to wage an assault on the beams and the Dark Tower itself. It's kind of portrayed as this beautiful suburb on top of this plateau with this gigantic building in the center of it that is presided over and guarded by these low men in yellow coats, by these people with fake skin masks over their head. So we are firmly in Book 7 territory right now.
Or Insomnia.
Yeah.
Or if you want to read a
or Hearts in
1,200-page novel,
Atlantis.
that's the ending of which is, I hope you read The Dark Tower.
Yeah, or Hearts in Atlantis. Yeah. Any of those particular things as they fire off a beam and cause the sky above New York to turn red. And this is an immediate signal to anybody who's read the entire series that like, oh, well, they just kind of revealed that. And that's not quite how it worked. What purpose is this going to serve? Wait a minute. Is Jake going to be the MacGuffin? Okay, yeah, Jake's going to be the MacGuffin. Fuck.
Yeah, just removing all of Jake's character basically, and turning him into a thing to be used.
Yeah,
which I mean, like there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that in the first book, right? Like Jake is literally a thing to be used in the first book. He's used and abused by both Roland and Walter on their quest, but by the end of this, that's not exactly what happens. And what they use him for doesn't really have a lot to do with the Dark Tower. It's more about their interpersonal relationship. So.
Yeah.
That was one of my first thoughts too, is seeing like, oh, okay, so Jake is obviously going to have the Shannon and, don't want to get sued. And then, this is going to be what the whole movie is about.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did kind of find myself, and like, this is a weird thing to find yourself wishing in a movie theater about a child character, but it's like, I kind of wish Jake had died.
Oh yeah.
And
I mean, that's the climax of the book.
Right. And like, I get that they're not doing the book and the whole, like, tell the boy what happened last time. Like that's pretty fucking cool. But like, I just wish that feels like such a fundamental part of who Roland is that skipping that was one of my biggest reservations about this movie.
Yeah.
Cause one of the most, like, jaw-dropping, riveting moments in the entire book series is when fucking the main character lets a child die in the first act. Essentially, like,
yeah,
this is who we're dealing with. Yeah, all right.
It is a clear piece of characterization that Roland is driven, and he does not really care what what harm comes to anybody. On like on his way. That Roland is not here. This is a defeated and downtrodden Roland that we see. Yeah. That we're going to see later on.
Yeah, and that's okay. And that kind of works with like the alternate 2017 timeline theory thing.
It's a decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are so many things about this movie that I wish I could like more than it lets me like.
You just have to take it as it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Jake wakes up, his mom, rouses him from his dream. New York is having an earthquake, which, doesn't happen. And this knocks over a picture of his dad. His dad who died. I think in an initial version, his dad was going to have died in 9/11.
Yeah, I remember seeing some stuff like that. Someone in our Slack was posting that. I think it might have been used. Was posting some original script sections, and it was, very much tied to some weird 9/11 stuff, which seems real weird, but also like that seems like very much a Stephen King thing to do as well. Like that feels very true to Stephen King, and just in like using national disasters as like springboards to plot. So
yeah, well, I mean, and also 9/11 is totally a thing. Like it is a plot point in book 6.
Oh yeah, oh shit, I'm on book 5. I didn't even think about that.
I forgot about that too.
That's how they get rid of Black 13.
Yeah,
they don't know. Well, they don't know that that's going to happen, and it's kind of left. Like we are deep in like late spoiler territory, but it's kind of fun. Like I think we're led to believe that 9/11 happened because Black 13 was there.
Yeah, we are. We absolutely, because oh my god, I'd forgotten about that. Oh man.
It's not my intention to laugh about 9/11. It's just a very bizarre point to have been made.
So in the multiverse theory, how many 9/11s does it take to kill a Black 13, Cole?
I just won.
I'm sorry.
I don't. Oh, geez. It's but yeah. The way it works now though is Jake's dad was a firefighter. He died in a gas explosion, and he's got this shitty new stepdad named Lon. Fuck you, Lon.
Lon is the worst. He's like the epitome of every bad stepdad that anybody has ever had in their lives.
Yeah. He extends his obviously mentally ill stepson no slack.
I really kept wishing that this would have been ridiculous, but if they'd gone with Ron instead of Lon, just because
so you could do the Bim Bam thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Anybody who's a My Brother and Me fan is just going to basically lose their shit as soon as there's any reference to a stepdad named Ron.
Oh, of course. Yeah. No, and they can, just attach a note that says "fuck you, Lon" to Oi and send him into the other room. Yeah.
My Tumblr bumbler.
Yeah. So Lon is.
Oh man, there's like 3 people who really like that joke.
Well, it's a popular show.
Yeah.
So yeah, Lon's breaking his balls, and maybe he feels a little bit alienated because Jake's room is covered in sketches of the Dark Tower, of the Man in Black, and just 19 over and over again for no reason aside from his shine trying to tell him a door code.
I'm so glad we went from nerd dork Jake Chambers to complete goth Jake Chambers. Like that's a great change. That's not being sarcastic whatsoever right here. Yeah, I really like goth Jake Chambers.
I didn't read him as goth. I just read like this is him. It felt like them borrowing a little bit of how he would be in the Wastelands, right? I didn't read him as goth. I just read him as being like exhausted and set upon.
Yeah,
I was just kind of mostly just joking with that, but with the weird sketches on the wall and the dark shaggy black hair, that kind of stuff. That was just
Yep. So, and he's got problems at school. I guess everybody knows that he is a doomsayer. Like even Bully comes up, takes a sketchbook, and says, "Hey, when's the apocalypse going to happen?" It's a very specific jab that you're taking there, Nelson. And then Jake is not taking any of the shit, beats him up, which gets him an extra special emergency slot at the psychiatrist, where the therapist pushes him and says, hey kid, maybe these drawings are about your dad? Darkness and fire? That's how your dad died. I'm a good therapist. I'm reminding you of your trauma.
Yeah. See, this would have been a good time for this to have been Walter, right? Like for Walter to be like manipulating his therapist to drive Jay crazy. That's the kind of Walter that I want in my movie.
Yeah.
That definitely seemed like a missed opportunity in a pretty big, obvious sort of way.
Yeah. Just like to see his eyes go black a little bit and hear like a small little echo of Walter over top of it. Yeah. I don't know. But regardless, their session is interrupted by a beam quake. Again, that's not just a thing that happens when the beam is eroded. That is something that when a beam breaks in the series, that causes that. Okay, so how much more of that should I do? Actually, like talking about the way the mechanics don't work, because it doesn't feel helpful, but it feels good to say.
It just feels good to say because we've been like blocking ourselves off on the podcast from saying all of this cool stuff like beamquake. So finally being able to say the words beamquake on a podcast, like finally we're here, we can do it.
Yeah, we can celebrate it. We can celebrate it. I won't be as shitty about it.
I think it's worth saying because just to show the differences, like because they don't really get into it in the film that much. Not that I don't think they do. There's so much weird exposition dumps that I may have missed it, but like I don't think they like get into a lot of the details, and it's a pretty important thing in the series. So.
It is, yeah. Well, you see the beams, but they are never alluded to as like the scaffolding structure, or the guy wires that hold this thing up. It is like literally just it's a beam quake, and Roland calls it a beam quake. I think referring to the beam that blasts out from the Devartois, as opposed to an attack on the beams themselves. But yeah, I don't know. It's a difference. But leaving the therapy.
Exactly.
Yep, it's a difference. And
That should be the title of this episode. It was just that long sigh you just did.
This is where we get to look at the Overlook Hotel, and that was a prominent moment in the trailer that everybody was real jazzed about, and is presented here just like it was in the trailer. I need to reevaluate my relationship to trailers after this, because there was a lot that I think I lost by looking at the trailer more than once.
Yeah, I typically, if there's a trailer for a movie that I'm really excited about, I will watch it at most one time, and I'm kind of leaning towards avoiding it entirely if I can.
Yeah.
It's difficult because like I like seeing teaser trailers, and that's really about it. But for example, me and my wife were eating sushi the other day, and some dumb sports thing was on TV, and in the middle of the dumb sports thing, a really long trailer for The Dark Tower came on. It was just like a giant screen directly in front of our faces, and there's no words or anything, but we saw the whole hospital scene that would come later, and I looked at her and I was like, is Roland like doing gags in the hospital? Like, is that what's happening here? Yeah. And sure enough, like that happens, which is a huge bummer. But yeah, like sometimes you just can't avoid it. Like it's really, really hard to avoid if you watch like just normal television anywhere.
Yeah, if you're exposed to it ambiently. We're gonna have to disagree about that hospital scene. I thought that was funny. But we'll get there. We get our first canonical low man in a yellow coat. Again, this is a good little production gag showing our guy trying to reaffix his mask. Oh man, I can't wait to talk about the Cantoy, or whatever they. Fuck, I need to actually like figure out what those things are called, don't I?
I would go Cantois, like if you want to hit the French with it.
Yeah, yeah, that's my instinct, but I think it might have been butchered in the audiobook, so I need to go back and listen to that. He sees this, runs, and a homeless man tells Jake that, they want to steal the power of your mind, which we know is we know that's the plot. I don't know. Back at home, Jake and his parents are like, "Hey, dude, you really fucked up. Why did you beat that kid up? You're on your last, like this is the last straw. We need to send you upstate. We need to send you off to the asylum, to this clinic for troubled teens." Which Lon assures us, "Oh no, it's science based. Don't worry." Like, we're you gonna send me to an Amish camp? Like, what? Yeah.
Stepdads always be trying to get rid of their stepkids.
Yeah, as opposed to, sometimes I don't blah. Sorry, I need to reestablish my energy level here, because I'm a little bit bummed out, and we're not even to the cool stuff. Yeah, and so Jake pulls down his sketches as his friend plays with Christine, by which I mean the car, a toy car that looks like Christine from the movie.
How many people you think have seen Christine? Like, that's such an old movie now, isn't it?
It's an old movie. You know what? I don't know. Christine isn't up there. Like, it's not in the pantheon of like, this is like a good ass movie that people would have seen, like Misery.
Yeah, that is one that I have not seen.
It's fine. It's a good story.
I wish he had been crashing the Christine truck into the Maximum Overdrive truck, because that would have been like the perfect.
Yeah, well, the Buick 8 watches.
Yeah, well, the Buick 8 watches. Yeah, just a weird automobile threesome of references.
I didn't have freeze frame, so I couldn't take a look behind him and actually make a note of what was on the shelf behind him. Yeah, and so at a certain point, for whatever your relationship with those Easter eggs is, when I started seeing them, like it became a little bit of a hunch that was more engaging than the movie itself for me at times. Like when it would pop up, I was like, I feel good for seeing that. I don't know if I feel good that it's there, but
yeah, I can definitely see that. Like you start looking, like that's one of the things. One of the reasons I said that they weren't subtle was because they give them to you so early and so often that you start looking through them for them throughout the rest of the film, and they're always there. Which is, I guess, it's not bad. It's just it's very distracting.
It's it comes down to a value judgment almost.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, but with the drawings down, Jake has one final dream in his home. a dream of the Battle of Jericho Hill, or what I assume is the Battle of Jericho Hill. This is, where Hope was ultimately lost. And we don't get our first glimpse of the Man in Black, like he's appeared in some of the visions, but this is definitely the first exposure to our good friend MIB doing what he do, by killing a soldier on the battlefield, somebody who's wounded, dying anyway. This could be a mercy, except he burns him to death. I like the way Walter's magic is handled in this, because it is so effortless for him. It's not like he is conjuring up a spell, and when he actually does expend effort toward the end of the movie, you can tell it kind of matters. The fact that he issues kind of these commands, he tells the soldier, now burn. He tells people stop breathing, while his arms are kind of folded behind him, kind of gives a little bit of this nonchalance to him.
Yeah, I definitely thought that was a cool way to play it, and I really liked how it just kind of played up the Matthew McConaughey-ness.
The Matthew McConaughey-nosity.
There we go.
I've got a wrist thing that measures that, actually. So if you need it, just let me know.
Cool.
I just felt like it played that up. I felt like they really could have overdone the all right, but I liked how they wound up executing the magic in the film. I felt like it was a good fit.
Yeah. There's a cynical read which could say, oh, they just didn't want to spend the budget doing a bunch of magic effects. So you could have them just tell people die and have the actors sell it. But
yeah, but at the same time, it's pretty badass.
Yeah. That's not the read that I give it, but I was like, did that factor in? Maybe. It's impossible that it didn't, but I don't know. Jeremy, how about you? Like, how does Walter's magic land for you?
It works for me some of the time, and then other times, like when later on he is walking by a woman and her child, and he tells the daughter hate your mother or something. I like the burn, right? Like,
yeah, burn's good.
Burn's good. Hate your mom seems like it would take a little bit more effort, just a tiny bit more effort.
Yeah. So
like sometimes it works for me and sometimes it doesn't, and I don't know. Like it's interesting talking to you about this. The both of you about this, because I'm beginning to learn that we maybe have different like ideas of who Walter is, which is the sign of a great book. But like he's always been like this manipulator who used magic to manipulate things, not necessarily used magic as a direct influence of things. And so like the casual hate was really kind of off-putting to me, but the him memorizing something or just intrinsically learning a spell to light stuff on fire just so he could say the word burn and then do it and look cool makes much more sense to me.
Yeah. Yeah, it could be an intimidation play. But so our friend Walter goes and breaks up a scene with Roland and Steven. They're sitting there talking about how all is lost and they have to protect the tower, that the tower will always stand as long as Roland does. And you think, hey, this is going to be a big fight. Turns out not to be, as Walter makes a couple of like illusions around them, and they do the Gunslinger's Creed, which takes up time in the movie in a way that it doesn't in the book. I got a little bit. It didn't carry as much weight for me as I would have hoped when they when they deliver it. And Walter dispatches Stephen to shame by saying, stop breathing. And Stephen obeys, and Roland is immune.
Yeah, and that was the lead up to one of my favorite lines in the movie, which is when he says, "My magics don't work on you, not forever." Mm-hmm. It's like there was something about that where it was. That is what made me so nervous that we won't see any more of these movies.
Oh, just that it wouldn't fulfill that.
Like what does he mean by that? What is going on? What is he doing?
Mm-hmm.
Because I like Walter, Martin, Randall Flagg, the Man in Black, like one of just the coolest characters in anything. And I feel like there are almost infinite permutations of that character that you can kind of take. And I am so curious where they're going with this one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if there is any more with this
And
one.
that's
No, I'm not even talking about like just the production, but just literally that, Walter dies at the end of this.
Well, yeah, but does he?
Who knows? Like, we are led to believe that he is dead. I guess that is that's why I phrased it as an if too.
It's Game of Thrones rules. Unless you see them completely dismembered and their bones burned, they're probably going to come back in some way.
Right.
And even then, who knows?
Well, yeah, the dust could reassemble. Could be like Cell from Dragon Ball Z.
I'm with
hip.
the anime cuts.
I'm
Whoa.
hip.
Unexpected.
That cannot be the first Dark Tower Dragon Ball Z comparison.
Oh,
but I really wish that there were more.
It's a big world.
Yeah.
I've got a podcast host, co-host that is way into the Dark Tower and also way into DBZ. So I can ask him to come up with some and just tweet them at you if you'd like me to.
Please do. I would very much enjoy that. I mean, I don't know an awful lot. I think the furthest I go is the Cell saga. That's where my interest fell off. Man, we're so far afield. we're so distracted this episode.
It's because this movie is not good. It's hard to talk about things that are bad.
Yeah,
and that's the I think, and this is something that Autumn specifically asked me to say, is that the movie is so damn forgettable. And you and I talked about that right before we started, Cole. Like, I could barely remember anything that happened to this, and it's just a week later. And I was so happy that you took notes today, so we could have like a basis to work from. But like, it just makes you, when you start talking about it, you just want to start talking about anything else, including Dragon Ball Z, which is the first for me.
Oh man, it can't all be dunks. Yeah, but this is this is the end, as Roland tries to shoot Walter, but he nonchalantly catches the bullet. Again, kind of playing up this idea that Roland's only weapon is useless. He can just casually ping, pull one better on Neo. He's not just stopping it. He's, catching it as it goes. And this ends with Jake waking up and hearing the opening line to the gunslinger here out of nowhere. And also, I don't think appropriate or applicable.
Yeah, that bugged me.
Yeah, we don't see, like, the Man in Black is never in the desert.
Yeah, and there's very little fleeing.
And the gunslinger is only barely following him. He seems to be going in circles more than he's doing anything.
Well, they even say, like, when they're trying to talk about, like, oh, like, where did Jake warp to? Oh, he's in the Mohane Desert. The gunslinger's there. Oh, well, what's he doing? He's just kind of wandering. Like they say it. That's text. That's text in this. Yeah. So who knows if that's a pull to a different timeline or a different cycle? I can't say, because there's not enough there for this to work with. What's more clear is the vision of the house at Dutch Hill, which, okay, cool. Big spooky mansion. I know roughly what role this is going to play. And then we get to one of our first major action sequences as the people from the clinic show up while Jake is using a web forum called Help Me Find It.
Yeah.
Which I think is the number 5 website behind Help Me Jerk Off, and also How Do I Get There? So,
HelpMeFindIt.com's number one searched term this year was the clitoris, just so that you know.
Oh, geez, they have it pinned. It's at the top. Just like, okay, you don't even bother asking. It's part of the fact.
Don't even bother asking.
It's part of the fact.
We see that you came from Reddit. We know what you're looking for.
Oh, man. I love these gatherers who are brought in. weird-skinned, twitchy-hand Jill, and the incredibly off-putting Toby. Who, far be it for me to, to critique somebody's physique. Is that a television show? Because it should be. Critique the physique. But Toby definitely matches what I picture when I picture the Cantois or the low men in yellow coats.
I agree, but at the same time, just like some more spontaneous stunt casting, I kept wishing it was Bobby Moynihan.
But this is great because Jake's like, hey, let me grab my toothbrush and we'll be on our way, after trying to get his mom to believe that they are here to take him and suck his brains out or whatever. And so he flees out the bathroom window. They break down the door and Toby's like, don't worry, I got this. I'm the overweight agile guy, and clambers up and parkours behind Jake.
Oh yeah, that was incredible.
There was a moment, I didn't imagine this, right, that he actually said the words parkour as he was doing it.
Yeah, it was definitely a like an Office kind of thing. Which makes sense because of Idris Elba.
Of course, yeah. Got the tie-ins. It's all canon.
Yeah, The Office is canon.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's I don't know if this was like played for laughs. Like, did you guys get the sense that this was played for laughs? Because I was laughing my ass off in the theater, and I was the only one doing it.
Yeah, I was definitely laughing, and I definitely didn't feel like I should have been.
Yeah,
same.
Yeah. Like when he wangs himself on that piece of like loose metal and cuts off part of his mask.
Yeah,
like it's a fine action scene. I don't think any of the action in this is execrable, but it tickled me. Especially when Jake loses them in the lamest way. He runs into the subway and then just runs back up the other entrance, just kind of hoping that he will lose them in the crowd and they will think he hopped onto a train. I don't know. It's good. I thought this was funny.
It's just bizarre. Like, it's just a weird moment in this movie. And because I found it amusing too. Like, I was chuckling at it and I was looking around and nobody else was, and I was like, okay, so am I being weird? Like, I thought this was kind of funny.
By this point, I had given up on feeling weird because I was the only person who was picking up what this movie was putting down vis-a-vis the small details. So,
well, and I kind of kept laughing because the very next scene, he winds up at the house on Dutch Hill, at which point the film promptly transforms into Monster House with Steve Buscemi.
Good Monster House, Paul.
That's all I could think of. That's all that I could think about. And it was like, oh, this is Monster House. This house is Steve Buscemi's wife. Man, that movie was pretty good. Nobody talks about that movie, but it was pretty good.
He got wife housed. Yeah.
Yeah. And so like I just kind of got like it was a fine action scene, but kind of a forgettable CGI action scene. And so I was just kind of thinking about how Monster House is pretty good.
Yeah. I liked the way the house demon articulated that it wasn't like a big house. Or, well, yes, it was a big house. Sorry. It wasn't like a big face that reached out or a body. It was like the debris kind of organizing as like a big tentacle, like wrapping him up with it. I think that was substantially less goofy. And it felt a little bit more immediate, but it lasts for like 20 seconds.
Yeah. I don't know. Like it was a cool scene.
I feel like there's 20 minutes of this in the outtakes.
Yep. The extended version. Mm-hmm. It clocks in at a solid, let's say hour and 50 minutes. Yeah. What were you saying, Evan? I'm sorry.
No, like I felt like the house demon was, it was done well, but the scene wasn't.
Yeah. Well, it's sequenced and paced really weird. Like he sees the portal, activates it. He dials in 1919. So the Cosmos is trying to give him a password, which is a little bit how that worked out in the book. But like it is an entire book, like book wide coincidence. That is, trying to
find another way to express that.
What's that?
I said find another way to express that. I don't like that at all. Take that back.
Yep. And Jeremy's gone. Sorry. Yeah. But it's a book-wide coincidence to try and communicate, where Susanna ended up. Like that is a cool and good detail in the books. Here it's just a password. It's coordinates take him to Midworld.
Yeah. And then the demon is all wife housing, and then Jake tries a whole bunch of stuff and nothing works, but then he says stop, and it's like,
yeah,
what now?
Surely a house demon is a very powerful entity, but a powerful enough psychic would be able to, come on.
Like, I don't know. I
like,
it's really great that the housewife's safe word was just stop. That works out really well for everybody, I think.
I think that would lead to a lot of false positives.
I said housewife. I meant wife house. I apologize.
Geez, but like in my head, like, just like what a great way to burn through an amazing and iconic scene from the books, right? Like,
yeah.
I'm not angry that they included it. I'm angry that it's a footnote. And again, the movie is blowing past these faster than we are.
Yeah, and I didn't really think of this at the time, but like talking about it now and looking at my notes and thinking back, and the way that I'm feeling about this movie is the same way that I felt about Star Trek Into Darkness and the way that they treated Khan as a villain. And it's like, man, there was so much cool stuff that they just rushed through and threw away.
Yeah, they just didn't do.
And like, it's not even like, oh, they didn't hit it this time. They did it in such a way where it's like, well, they used that poorly.
Yep. Like, so hypothetical Dark Tower 2, Return to the Tower, another house demon shows up and they do it right. It's going to be entirely undercut by like, wait a minute, didn't they just do this?
Yeah, why didn't Jake just say stop?
No. And it's immune to his magics like Roland is to...
Yeah.
So,
like, I guess that my relationship with this movie, and the more like this is upon discussion, reflection since we started the podcast even, but there's so much that it did well that I liked in terms of individual notes and elements, but it didn't combine them or utilize them in any kind of good way.
No. And this is like, it's a little bit the role that I find myself playing on other shows, not to get meta here, although it's appropriate for a Dark Tower kind of thing, where I will be the advocate for the small things that worked, even in the face of those small things not adding up to enough to make the overall impression or quality of a thing good. Right. You know, if you look at it on the grand balance, I will be the person who highlights those. And I really want to give the movie credit where it's due. But like,
yeah,
man, it's hard.
I'm not trying to be a fucking Butterfield here.
No. If anything, you're trying to. If anything, you're being a Ross. You know.
I'm the Butterfield in this podcast. I can already tell you that.
Yeah. But you know, it's hard. It's hard to give those small things credit when the problem is structural, right? Like I can love me a coat of paint on this demon house, but it's got termites and demons, yo.
Yeah.
So it's hard to play those up when I know that like they're not going to spend enough time. They're not going, you know, I said this in a recent episode that hasn't aired, so I guess it's not recent. In an episode that will eventually come out, but like part of having a good idea is also making sure people see it, making sure it sinks in, having the confidence to, you know, to like make sure it stands, you know, to make sure it stands proud. Here it doesn't. Like it doesn't have the confidence. It just moves on to the next thing. Ugh. So, regardless, Jake ends up in the Mohaine Desert after tossing his shoe through. I think he says, like, this is good, this is real. I don't know what that means as he wanders along.
I kind of got that, like, he's not crazy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what I was going to go with, too. It kind of, in a way, that echoes what he was, you know, what he went through in the third book, right? Like, where he had that divided reality. That's kind of what I took from it, too, so.
Yeah. We get a small cut to the Devartois, where we see a character that I like in the books. I'm actually kind of fine with his portrayal here. Like, I like Pimley as this kind of hapless schlub, goofy guy with like the shaggy hair and the, you know, just dressing like dressing real normcore. Like that's good and fine. I would actually like to see him do more with that, honestly. However, he is just an accessory for that room, which is a real problem.
Yeah.
I feel like this entire room is an accessory for Walter. Like, I have no idea. I was watching this and I was like, who are these people? What is happening? What movie is this from? Is this from a different Matthew McConaughey movie?
and see, I felt like they hit the balance just wrong, because I feel like if the room had been purely an accessory for Walter, it would have been fine. Or if it had been more fleshed out and substantiated, it would have been fine. But it was like they gave just enough where it's like, oh, this is supposed to be a thing, but what thing is it supposed to be?
Well, it's also a completely illogical space. Sorry to go all Dark Souls in this, but like it is simultaneously the room where the death machine that's powered by children is, but also Walter has his own little nook where he keeps the bends of the rainbow. And he's got his bookshelves and his box of bullets and stuff. Like, I don't know what they cut to this, and it's meant to be like a headquarters, but it is not like a logical or meaningful location. It is just a catch-all villain enclosure.
Yeah.
It's Asteroid M, right? Like, it's just it's all of Magneto's toys in one little spot that he can access at any one time, with a bathroom in the corner. That's what this is.
Yeah. And then they introduced Tirana, which is like, that is why is she here? That's not who she is. Tirana's I think she's a vampire. She's definitely like, she only appears like on like 2 pages in the Dixie Pig.
Yeah, like,
I'm glad you picked this up. I had no idea who she was. I was even reading your notes and going like, who the hell is Tirana? Like, I know who she is in the movie, but like, I don't remember her from the books at all.
Yeah, well, she's never named, and neither is Pimley. So it's like they serve a purpose just to be people who deliver bad news, to Walter. Yeah, I don't know. I'm doing a search here to see if she is a Tahine or if she is a vampire. And there's an article here which is from 1 year ago. The Dark Tower finds its female lead, but who is this character?
I saw that too.
Yeah, I remember when that came out, and I remember thinking that like, oh, like it's weird that they're bringing Tirana in the first movie. I guess they're doing something really cool and different. And then it was like, she's just kind of a throwaway character.
Yeah. And, you know, in fairness, it would be cool if they had more noteworthy female characters in this series, right?
It'd be cool if they had more noteworthy characters at all.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
It would have been good. However, she is kind of just a pretty face for Walter to comment on. So like, oh, you know, pick a pretty face and the world's your oyster. And then later, when she disappoints him, to burn and disfigure her. Yeah, but she comes in to raise an alarm over Jake activating this long dormant portal. So they're all plugged in. A little bit wasting the notion of this massive castle full of doors that were used by the old ones for tourism, into these other worlds. So regardless, Jake is in the desert, and the Man in Black knows it, and also knows that he is going to see his old friend Roland. And why don't we get to that with Jake stealing some of Roland's water, having just wandered through the desert. And Roland just straight up both draws a gun on a kid and also dangles him over a ledge.
That, to me, actually felt very Roland.
It did. It struck me.
I did think it was kind of interesting, and maybe this was me reading more into it than was even there, but Jake taking Roland's water in the movie, when in The Gunslinger, Roland kind of sort of drank Jake's, like Jake provided water to Roland at the way station.
Yeah. The shifting of the rescue there.
Yeah, like I feel like I feel like there could have been some really cool symbolism there if they'd gone just, again, like one step further with it.
Yeah, what I think they wanted was a chance to show, like, to introduce Roland literally with his gun drawn, and also to have it be an exact mirror of the drawing that Jake had made after one of his dreams. And it's one of these drawings that is that convinces Roland to not drop him off of a cliff. The drawing of the Man in Black, and Jake is very confused to hear that his name is Walter. That is not the name of a sorcerer who is worse than the devil.
That actually reminded me, and this is going to tie back into the reboot podcast that I'm not going to shut up about until we do it. There's the super powerful guardian named Bob.
Yeah,
I love when supernatural characters have the most mundane names.
Yeah. Well, Roland's not that exotic of a name either.
No, but Roland is kind of like antiquated in a way that fits.
Yeah. Like Walt is. It's a little colloquial. Yeah.
Yeah. Like how many Walters have you actually come across in life versus how many Rolands?
You mean aside from the lead singer of Tears for Fears?
Obviously.
Well, yeah.
I know. Obviously, besides your good friend, the lead singer for Tears for Fears.
Yeah.
I mean, he's all of our good friend.
Oh, I mean, of course. I mean, I don't know him, but I feel like I know him.
Yeah, your friend, my friend, everybody's friend.
Yeah. He answered the question: how big is that chair, and also what kind of songs come from it?
I mean, it's a mad world.
I really like this depiction of the desert. By the way, this is one of the things in the movie that I actually really, really dig, and that I think comes over pretty direct from the Gunslinger book. Mm-hmm. Is that this just barren wasteland of a place, and just in my head, I always envisioned it brighter, like a more like an old Western kind of desert, more than this. But this
sun-beaten and sandier.
Exactly, but this really, really worked for me too. Like this almost feels better. Like this almost feels like an end of the world desert. Like you could literally walk off the universe at any point and not even realize it.
Yeah, completely dead is what it looks like.
Yeah, I actually had in my notes. I can't read most of the words, but I can see the word topography. I like that it's not just like a flat desert. There are cliffs and mountains, and there's a lot going on with the landscape.
And when they take the time to show you these grand vistas, these beautiful views ahead, and show you the alien sky with the two moons in it, like that is like universally a good thing that they should have done more of. Make this feel like a strange and broken and beautiful place.
Make it a 99-minute movie and just give me 2 minutes of this.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Just have the confidence to not literally just proceed with the incident at like a lockstep pace. Yeah. Sorry to keep harping on that. I know that's probably going to drive some people crazy, but like, no, this is a good thing. Have the confidence to lean into it. But Roland believes the visions and says, hey, we got to take you to a professional. No, not somebody who's going to remind you about your dead dad. No, to the seer who's going to interpret your visions. And meanwhile, Walter is back in New York, and we get a little bit of that. Whenever somebody's out of place in modern society, like that's why the first Thor movie works. And we're going to see that here. But he is like weirdly at home. But also an agent of chaos in this. This is the part where he tells a little girl to hate her mom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But he finds Jake's blood and takes it to the Dixie Pig, again, a thing from book 6, and gives it to Sayer, which here Sayer is like a leader of the underworld as opposed to being a corrupt executive of the Somber Corporation. And when I say leader of the underworld, he looks like an extra from the Underworld movies.
Which side, the werewolf or the vampires? They've been fighting each other for centuries, right? Are you aware?
Either or. Just the way he's dressed or his presentation or just everything about the Dixie Pig, it doesn't really land for me. Like Sayer's pretty important in the cosmology, but here he's just somebody who exists to taste blood and say, yes, it's a boy, this is a fine vintage, the shine is pure in this one. And the shine is just a rebranding of the touch, right? It's a way for them to not have two separate kinds of psychic powers in the shared Stephen Kingiverse, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I kind of figured in the books that the Touch was kind of a rebranding of the Shine.
Yeah.
So
Stephen King has like 18 names for kids having psychic powers, and
like that didn't bother me at all. It was just like, let's just kind of simplify this a little bit.
Yeah, just could like gather all of this together under like maybe not the more popular books, who knows, but like the Shining has much more cultural cachet than the Dark Tower does, and definitely will. So just consolidate. It's fine. He's psychic. Whatever. He also heads over, grabs our buddies who failed to grab Jake. Basically says, okay, give me his name. Tell me where he went. And instead of just killing them together, he says, hey, kill each other. And, they start fighting, and he orders everybody to, like, hey, keep calm, everybody, enjoy the show, because you ain't seen nothing yet.
I kind of loved everything about that scene.
I love how hapless they are. It's super goofy. But again, it plays into Walter as manipulator more than anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. You sounded skeptical, Jeremy.
This just didn't work for me. Like, I don't want to harp on it too bad because it's just there, but like it was one of those times in the movie I was just like, okay, yeah, like, I mean, you're going to rush through just about all of the cool stuff and like take your time with this for some reason. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm going to be very honest. I saw this movie on, I think Sunday. And since I saw that scene, I've been trying to think of an appropriate Teenage Dirtbags segment that we could work into this episode.
I don't know. We'd have to make one up, but I don't feel like doing that. I don't feel like going to that effort.
No, that's the thing is like if like they've got literally infinite segments, and I just none of us have the time to go through their decades long back catalog and find the right one. Yeah. Unfortunately.
So let's do the segment where we just tell people to listen to Teenage Dirtbags. Although a comparable number of people listen to both of these shows, so it would be a very strange one indeed. Yeah. Back over on Midworld side, we have Walter with Jake's name and his rough whereabouts, whatever. This is where they're in the spooky woods in the ruins of a theme park that is themed after Pennywise the Clown. I love the idea of Roland thinking that these were massive structures whose purpose was lost to the ages, not like seeing the big banner in the fun graphics and the clown itself and the balloons and stuff. Like, he is very morose about this, about the whole proceeding.
Yeah, this is one of those good fish out of water moments you mentioned, like Thor 1 had. It's funny you brought up Thor 1 because that was one of Allison's points when we were talking about this the night the movie came out. She was like, this is the reason it's good is because of all of the fish out of water moments, like Thor 1.
There are a handful of them. I don't know about all of them, but there are a handful of them. Good.
I've already said my piece on the references. Like, this just seems like an extended one of those, and why?
It's okay.
Right?
So it's a good setting for them to be camped out in this theme park that the forest has overtaken. It is both incidental and kind of annoying that it is themed after Pennywise. So it can either mean absolutely nothing to the scene and you just defer to this being, okay, well, nature has reclaimed everything, or it can stick in your craw the entire way. I'm not saying either one of those is correct, but like those are both of the reactions that I can see.
Yeah, I should probably just let it go.
No, it's fine. I'm not telling you to let it go. I just
Oh, I know. Yeah, I just don't want to hold us up too much on Jeremy hates like all of these references that are here for basically no reason. So,
right. It's no reason.
I feel like we need a Teenage Dirtbag segment for that. We can just put that in instead of me talking about it the next time it happens.
To go through them, yeah. Well, Tahiner rallying around them in the forest, and Jake, in an echo of a scene in The Gunslinger, decides to wander off and actually sees his dad. Hey kid, you got tall. We're not dead here. We all live down here.
We all float down here.
And so this turns out to be a demon, one of which got through after the beam quake. So I'm bummed out, and I'm not that crazy about the change to the cosmology, wherein the Dark Tower ends up being this bulwark, this thing that is actually like a shield generator keeping the demons out, right? I would have preferred that the main purpose of it be to hold the world together, and the secondary thing would be if the world falls apart, the beings of chaos will come through, right? It's kind of cool that he grabbed the spider and, put it up against the his drawing of the map that he did, symbolizing either, the being that is it or the Crimson King, both of which are these massive spider monsters, whose true forms wait at the barrier to our universe. That is a cool and good, like, subtle reference to those things. But I just wish they hadn't simplified it to like, oh, it's like a shield, because it's weirder and more psychedelic than that.
Agreed.
However,
yeah,
these little tears that pop up where you literally see, like, I think it's visually impressive the way the fabric of the universe kind of gives way to this like Stranger Things-esque, upside down leaking through, where you see the demons like rallying and pounding on the wall of the fabric between reality. Like it is a cool way to do like the Thinny style thing.
Yeah, it's like a shortcut to that, right? It's kind of a neat thing to do that. Yeah.
It's cool when the sky above New York changes over to that later. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But regardless,
it's a cool effect.
Yeah.
There were a lot of cool visuals in this movie. Like, God, just like thinking about it and talking about it, it's like there were so many cool visuals and so many cool ideas and so many like almost cool things that they did.
Yeah, almost cool treatments of ideas that we are aware of from the books.
Yeah, and they just like stopped just before it would have worked. They tried to fit more of them in than they could, and as a result, they cut them all off at the knees.
Yeah. The dose makes the poison, but the dose also makes the difference between whether this is cool and good or, I don't know. I lost my metaphor there. Yeah. But Roland shoots the illusion of his father, knowing that this is preying on his weakness, and they fight. They fight off a skeleton crew that, in a nod to book 2, injures Roland by piercing his shoulder and causing a massive infection before they kill it off for good.
Yeah, and I was almost surprised that he didn't get some cheflet for it.
Oh, I'm sure that would have been worked into an earlier draft.
Yeah, like it just felt at this point in the movie like I was still on board with it, but it at this point it was just so much was just kind of on the nose. I was just like almost waiting for it.
Yeah.
I have to imagine that because I think we talked about it on the podcast when it came up. Like I had never heard of Keflex before reading the Dark Tower. Like it just wasn't a thing. And I have to imagine that if they were watching, like if they were focus grouping this thing and they had the word Keflex in there and had a comedic moment of, Roland not being able to pronounce it, just being completely lost on the audience and being like, that was supposed to be funny. I don't get it.
Yeah, the way that this would have been done, what it would have been focus tested to is like, oh, you need some penicillin, and Roland would say, "What are you saying about my penis?"
There you go. That's it.
I'm only halfway joking. Like that is like that is the gag that somebody would pitch for that.
Yeah,
I
think I am actually deathly allergic to Keflex.
Oh yeah,
so that's why I've heard of it.
That's your point of reference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My association with that shit is anaphylaxis.
Oh yeah, fun. Those are always terrifying stories of reactions to that kind of stuff.
It's the only allergy I've got that's like intense like that.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, I've told the story elsewhere at the time I lost control of my face because of a medicine allergy.
Oh yeah, that's that is arguably less life-threatening, but infinitely more terrifying to me than anaphylaxis.
Yeah.
Has anybody ever seen The Weeknd and Cole Ross in the same place at the same time? Are we confirmed that that's not the same person?
The Weeknd? Who's The Weeknd?
He sings that song, I Can't Feel My Face.
Oh.
Never mind.
I don't know what you're talking about, Jeremy.
Oh, man. Dude. He's,
we do not have to go into it. I'm so sorry.
His hair is pretty great.
Is this a modern thing? Like, I don't know what you're
it's just a modern singer. Yeah. Like that does like R&B club music. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He's
I will link you later.
Fairly popular R&B singer with a very iconic hairdo.
Yeah. We should proceed to a scene that is supposed to be played for a lot of emotion, but starts out with, I think, one of the like genuinely most funny moments where Jake's parents come home. Walter has been hot on their trail to find him wearing an apron and cooking chicken, apologizing because we don't have chicken where I come from. I thought this was
really
good.
Great.
This is the tone that I wish Walter would have adopted for most of the time, because it comes out of nowhere, and he quickly turns it up. Like, he instantly kills Lon, however much he might have deserved it through the lens of mistreating his stepson. This freaks out Jake's mom, and then he turns like super predatory on her. Like menacing her, getting like right over top of her, grabbing her face, telling her not to fight it. Like, it's real. I mean, he's the villain, but like, I got real kind of like squirmy in my seat watching this because I wasn't ready for it to get that to take on that aspect. Right.
I wasn't really braced for it, but at the same time, that was one of the moments that felt the most Stephen King to me.
Yeah.
Because he kind of pulls that shit.
Yeah.
And it was a very true to the source type of moment.
Yeah. But, you know, she mentions the drawings because, like, she recognizes him. That's what tips her off, as opposed to this just being a home invader. You know, this is a cosmic invader. And he drags her into Jake's room and forces her to recover the memory of the drawings that were there. Well, it looks like I got myself a stalker.
Yeah. I liked that.
Yeah.
Just
like the slack-faced way that he says it, just kind of like remarking, like, "Huh."
Yeah, I don't know. I remember when that happened, like when that line came, I was just like, I really enjoyed it, and I was like, I feel like not too many people are going to think kindly on that line.
Oh, looks like I got myself a stalker.
Yeah, I don't know why. I just kind of had a feeling like.
I mean,
I loved it. I thought it was great, and it's like, it's probably gonna not be a favorite.
It doesn't matter how evil I am. If I find an evidence dungeon of somebody who's been obsessing over me, like, I'm going to talk about it. Yeah. What were you gonna say, Jeremy?
Do you guys have you guys ever listened to a lot of Bill Hicks stand up?
Yeah.
There's the scene, and I feel like I'm repeating myself on this podcast, so I apologize if I am. But there's the scene where he talks about, or the bit where he's at Waffle House after his act, and he's reading a book, and someone comes over and he looks like we got ourselves a Rita, and it's just exactly the same tone and inflection that Matthew, all right, delivers the stalker line in, and it like that's the reason that this was funny to me. Like, I started kind of cracking up a little bit, like it's just lost any kind of like threat or anything. Because I just pictured Matthew McConaughey going up to Bill Hicks and being like, we got ourselves a Rita.
Yeah. And then it's left ambiguous for the moment what he does with Jake's mom, although we know it's not good. Instead of leaving on or showing physical violence against her, it leaves on emotional violence, shaming her for possibly selling her son down the river, like look what you did. Look who you delivered him into the hands of, me, which is pretty devastating, a very devastating thing to say to a mom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if I'm happy. Like if I'm happier with Jake's parents being, or his parental figures or whatever, being dispatched with on camera and providing like a motivation, like a very clear, like, hey, this person killed your parents. Hey, you have no attachment to this world anymore. If I'm happier with that, or if I would have been happier if they kind of mimicked him abandoning them because he felt more at home in one world than the other. I feel like both of those have a pathos. It's just that one is more complicated and slow burn, and the other one plays better on the screen. So, like, if I was making a decision about this, I don't know if it's as cut and dry.
I think the way that the movie presents it works better in a modern context. Excuse me. Than Jake just literally leaving his parents behind, and like that he does in the book. So, excuse me, I just sneezed and I didn't do it on the mic, but now my voice is all messed up.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
But yeah, I feel like the way the movie does it like makes sense to the audience, and that's probably the reason they did it, is so that he literally has no ties left anymore.
Right. So it doesn't feel like a plot hole. Like, why doesn't this young man love his parents? Well,
yeah, why isn't he going back to his shitty life? With his shitty stepdad that wants to send him to the Amish community center or whatever.
Why does he send him to Churnsley University?
Churnsley U.
Barn Raisers.
I need that shirt. Quick, fast, in a hurry.
Churnsley U. Oh. So Roland and Jake arrive at the town. I don't know what this town is supposed to be. I think that it's supposed to be a little bit of a kind of like representation of the Kala, a little bit.
Yeah, that's kind of what my take was too.
And the only reason I say that is less because it has access to and is adjacent to this more modern technology, but because everybody seems to be in pretty good health, to the point where I think they really fell down on the costume and production design and just told people, like, dress in whatever normal clothes you have. When I think of townspeople in Roland's world, I think of them having like homemade clothes. I think of them having, let's say, mysterious wounds and weeping sores. I picture them being a little bit more roughshod than just a bunch of dudes and ladies that we see here.
Yeah, these people look surprisingly intact to me.
Yeah.
They're just all hanging out like it's a costume party. Like they could be at a con of some sort. I don't know if it's like Desert Con or Midworld Con or like that, but they could definitely all be at a con.
Yeah. Like, it's down to the point where they come here for this seer. His name's Aura, and you think, okay, a seer is going to be pretty roughed up and like in rough shape, somebody who's seen some shit. I'm not saying this to be creepy. I didn't expect her to be this gorgeous actress. She's fine. She does a very good job. Like she does well. It just doesn't feel appropriate to me.
Yeah,
given
this whole scene does not feel appropriate to me, so yeah. I'm with you.
Yeah, given what I know about Roland's world, this feels strange and out of step. Yeah, I don't know. The realization that Walter has is that with Jake's pure shine, having seen what Jake has seen, is that Jake alone can take down the tower. So they immediately don't need anybody else than Devartois. They can just, get him. Like, that is the end run that they want to do. As Aura also discovers the depths of Jake's power, demonstrates, telepathy demonstrates this connection, demonstrates how strong his shine is, as Roland has this nasty looking infection that cannot get better here. And they arrive at what their plan ought to be, which is they need to get to the place in Jake's drawing by going through Keystone Earth to get, to get to the Devartois.
Yeah, I don't have much to.
Yeah, we should just talk about the dinner, because this is another line that I think would have landed better for me if I didn't hear it 10 times watching the trailer. The whole, Roland asking Jake about Earth, saying, "Hey, do you have guns? Do you have ammo?" And then Jake saying, "Oh, you're going to love Earth." Like, that would have been a nice little, like, trenchant commentary about how common guns are in America. But it just wore out its welcome for me.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, well. And this is where, like, way too late, the movie starts questioning or raising some doubts about Roland's motivations, about what his actual reason for being on this quest or this reason for, proceeding forward in this direction is. Because, somebody comes up and says, hey, we can't just activate the portal. They're going to find us. Like, they're going to know we have it. Like, all the gunslingers are gone. Why would we believe this charlatan? And Ara reads him and says, like, yeah, he was once a gunslinger, but he travels with this, he travels with his soul in the Man in Black's pocket, and he's only powered by revenge, which we have not really seen so far. It's not been like stated that that's what he wants to do. He's willing to kill Jake over like information about where the Man in Black is, but like it's not been something that has like been all consuming for him. He pretty much immediately drops everything to keep Jake in his in his sphere, right?
Yeah, because Jake is the exposition nugget. Like we have to keep the exposition nugget around so that we can have more exposition. So
I suppose. Otherwise, nobody has a reason to say the things we need to hear.
Exactly.
Yeah. But the conclusion is that Roland is no longer a gunslinger in spite of Jake's protestations. However, they are still going to activate the portal. It's fine. And as they go and activate portal 1408, wink and nod, the Taheen attack. I initially didn't realize these were Taheen. I thought they were orcs.
Yeah, I didn't get Taheen at all.
Yeah, the first time that I realized it was Taheen was when you sent the show notes.
Yeah,
a couple hours ago.
Right. Yeah, like that is what they're supposed to be. Like some of these guys, we saw them like suiting up in the Devartois, but yeah, like they come across as orcs. They feel like they come out of nowhere, and Roland is completely consumed by fever and is taking them out. As we get a cutaway to Walter, who is watching all of this through his orbs. He has Black 13. That's very strange. And then also provides some exposition that is not necessary here, saying that yes, his guns are made from Arthur Aveld's swords, which is true, and also Keystoners call it Excalibur, which is also true, but it is a very dumb detail to share in a movie.
Yeah, it's really on the nose
whatsoever.
The way they presented it.
Yeah.
Also, why are we dealing with the Black 13 at all? Like,
yep.
Like, have this dude be like he's got a villain layer, as we've already established. Just have him be looking at a weird screen. Nobody would know the difference. Like,
it's full of technology. You have all of the technology around you.
It's just such a weird thing to pull like this extremely important, dangerous artifact out of the latter half of the series into the very first of your universe movie. And I keep going back to the way that they just ruin stuff in advance. Like they just pull it and they're like, oh, well, we're going to change this and so it doesn't make any sense anymore ever, and then put it in the movie.
Yeah. So this fight, it's fine. It is a competently done action scene. Like Roland isn't just taking everybody out himself. He is rallying the townspeople to do what they need to do. They are not just victims. Like, they're burning the town down. Everybody's trying to, save their stuff. And we get to another thing that I wish, that fucking trailer. Like, I wasn't one of the people who was angry about the reload trick that people, that we saw. I was like, whatever, fine. And just, whatever, fine. But it ruined some really good stuff that I wish I would have seen, because like taken, not in a vacuum, but taken as part of this, knowing the context for Roland being, out of his mind, with fever and infection and all of that, when he focuses and listens as the Taheen are carrying Jake away and then makes that completely impossible shot, that could be like this amazing moment that is the height of like, oh, the way that Roland conceptualizes the world around him, the way he keeps an entire conflict in his head, how heightened his senses are, it is above and beyond anything that should be humanly possible. Awesome, good, and great. I feel like that was a little bit of that impact was taken away. I know that's not the movie's fault. Trailers are cut together by different people, and it's my fault for watching it. So I apologize if that is an irritating criticism to say. I think it was done much better in the movie than it was there, but all of the impact was taken out of it for me.
I could not agree more.
Yeah.
Like that could have been such a powerful, impactful scene if we hadn't seen it already.
Yeah.
And like, granted, like the context does make it different, but just it's such a ridiculous visual that out of context it seems kind of dumb, and presenting it in context it could have worked, but having already seen the visual, it was just like, oh, okay, that's where that goes.
Yeah. Like, oh, he's in this village. I know when night falls, he's going to do that cool thing. Just wait for it. Watch it.
Yeah, it was, and that's it. I don't know. That just feels very endemic of so many of my issues with this movie that I liked a lot in spite of its issues.
Yeah. Jeremy is the person who I think falls most on the side of I don't like this movie on the show currently. What did you think of this? Like how this landed as part of Roland's, something that Roland has in his quiver.
The battle scene itself was competent. These reloading tricks, I think, are cool. I don't associate them with Roland so much. Like, you see him, like, in the books, he's fast, right? Like, that's pretty much all he is. He's extraordinarily quick. Mm-hmm. Even when he's strung out and sick and on the beach and he just had his hands, mutilated, he's still extremely quick. Like, I think he spooks Eddie a couple of times with how fast he moves, even though he's super sick. So,
which is like one of the coolest parts of the Roland characterization in the books that I was really hoping we'd get
exactly
in the movie, because like, especially like Idris Elba moving scary fast is viscerally intimidating, because as Cole mentioned, he is a fucking slab of a man.
Yeah.
Like, again, anybody that big moving that fast, and especially anybody that big and that intense moving that fast, like that could have been so cool, and I feel like they kind of short sold it.
Yeah.
It
didn't mean to talk over you, Jeremy. I'm sorry.
You're good. It just seems too slick.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it seems like a very Hollywood thing. And I know that's a dumb thing to complain about in a Hollywood movie, but at the same time, like, I don't know, like, it's just it's a weird thing to, like, do you think Court trained him with that? Because in my head, like, Court would have just, like, if the moment that he threw at the moment that he tried to do a trick like this, Court would bash him up the head, right? Mm-hmm. Like, that would happen immediately. He'd be like, what are you doing? You forgot in the face of your father, you maggot. Like, stop that. Like, we're not here to make it look pretty. We're here to make it look useful.
You're going to waste bullets.
So, and again, that's me coming at this from just as a big fan of the books and trying to remember that it's not a direct adaptation. By itself, if I saw this in Jumper or Wanted, I think the tricks would be very cool. So
yeah.
If we can take a quick stunt casting detour,
Dean Norris for sure. Dean Norris. If we're doing the Breaking Bad thing as Court, yeah.
I don't know the actor's name. I was thinking whoever plays Stick in the Netflix Daredevil series.
I was thinking the guy who plays Mike in Breaking Bad.
Oh, okay. Wait, we were both going Breaking Bad. Yeah, Dean Norris plays Hank.
I have a shameful confession. Yeah. I have only seen the first 2 episodes of Breaking Bad.
Oh, it's a good show.
Yeah, I know.
You literally don't need anybody else to tell you that.
Yeah, no, I know. I started watching it at a time when everything in life was very stressful, and I started getting like I started watching the 3rd episode and started getting like physical anxiety symptoms, and was like, all right,
the 3rd episode is fucking just harrowing as well.
Yeah,
like that is a wall for a lot of people.
It's real rough. It is bad when everything else in your life is not so great.
Yeah. For people listening who only have a rough like a recollection of how that goes, I believe the 3rd episode is the raspberry jam episode.
And so I stopped watching very early in that episode, and then Jessica and I started like we tried to watch it together, and we got through the first episode, and we got up to the just after. Oh God, I'm Aaron Paul's character. All I can think of for his name is Eddie, because it's fucking Eddie Dean in my mind. Jesse, that's the one. He leaves the hardware store with the. Or he leaves the hardware store after looking at the plastic tubs and the acid in the bathtub and all that. Like, we got to that point, we were just like, life is too difficult right now. We can't handle this.
We're not ready for this.
Yeah. So I have seen like roughly like 2.2 episodes of Breaking Bad ever.
Yeah. Yeah, Mike would be a good one. I forget that actor's name, which is shitty because he's a good actor. Let's see here. Where were we at? Because you were talking, Jeremy, about how flashy this is. I agree. Roland should be more practical. I think that of the 3 reloading tricks that we see, the one where he just kind of like snaps it up from the gun belt, like as they hang low, is the most practical of them, right?
Same. Mm-hmm. That seems like something that he would do, right? Like that seems like a reasonable thing to, like a practical thing to do. I think practical is probably the best term for that.
Yeah. So they go through the portal. The town is in disarray. You know, they say, as long as Jake is here, you're no longer safe. So let's get as far away as we can. And they make Earthfall in a Chinese restaurant. And this is where it becomes Thor 1. When they arrive, Roland is a little bit upset because one of the guys has a knife. Jake has to assure him, he's a chef, like he's supposed to. He's not a threat. And Jake is desperately trying to keep people from noticing that Roland is, very out of place here. As they walk onto the street, again, this is a little detail from the series, out past the Globe Theater, which is holding Spaghetti Western Night at the Majestic, just like Eddie saw, when he was doing his stuff. Cut away to Walter burning that woman, which is uncalled for, and saying, "Yep, one last time around the wheel, old friend." Another one of those lines that is supposed to evoke the idea that yes, this is part of the cycle. No, that horn on your back is not just costume design. Yes, this is possibly alluding to a greater import as we go to a straight up comedy scene with Roland in the hospital. Jeremy, you do not like the hospital scene with Roland.
I mean, at this point, like, the movie has worn out its welcome. Like, and we're only 70 minutes into it, maybe 80 minutes into it. But I'm just so done with all of this. And like the fact that, again, we're rushing through, we're burning so much of the series goodwill. We're burning so much mystery. And then let's take a break so that we can see something that we've seen in literally like every fish out of water comedy movie that you've ever seen since 1975. Like, let's do that again.
Yeah. Like, what was that one where Arnold Schwarzenegger was Hercules in New York? I believe it was called Hercules in New York.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Continue. I didn't mean to talk over you. I'm sorry.
No. It's that was pretty much my point. Is just like we've seen this in countless out of movies. It's I mean, don't get me wrong. It's not a bad thing. It's just in the context of this movie. It's just like, why are you showing this to me? Like, why? Like, what tension are you relieving right now? Like, you've been going so fast. I barely remember why we're doing anything.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong. Evan, do you have a different take on this? Are you into this?
I've been kind of quiet because I really don't have a different take. I'm just like, yeah.
Okay, well, I will be the person who goes to bat for this. I think that the pacing of this, like, this is a moment. I don't know. Like, if this was a more comedic movie, it probably would have played better. I think the performances play well into it. So both the pacing and the performance lead to this comic timing that I think works very well. I think Idris Elba does an amazing job at just being completely over this. Like, he conveys very well that, like, okay, he understands roughly what is going on here. He knows that he is in a place of medicine and these people are making him better. He has no time to suffer the fools. Like the bit of information that he has, hepatitis alphabet and also low level chronic radiation sickness. is it doesn't flinch off him. He's like, okay, like just his completely being done with this now that he has what he needs, which is antibiotics in his veins, and painkillers, really sells it. Combined with Jake trying to silently intervene and convince him not to completely give away give away the act. Yes, it's a little bit of it is a very much overdone kind of thing, but even the end where it becomes chaotic, where he rips out the IVs and tries to pay them with a Gilead dollar. Like that's good and funny. I agree with you, Jeremy, that like, okay, well, now you're going to spend time on this. This is a good thing to spend time on, right? Like in a better movie with more considered pacing, this would not feel like it was expensive, right?
And yeah, that's my exception with it. Again, I don't think that it's bad at all. Like it's like Idris Elba doing this is really funny. Like that dude is a funny guy.
Yeah.
Like that, going back to that thing that we saw recently, where the GIF was passed around, where he was saying, "Are you really taking notes during a criminal fucking conspiracy?" Like he's a funny guy.
Thank you for not saying the word that comes right before that.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that. But it's his delivery on comedic stuff is really good. It's just, again, this movie has done no favors to it's not earned anything like this to me.
Yeah. So too little, not enough, not at the right time. Yeah, I can see all of those. I was grinning from ear to ear when this happened, though, because I was like, this breathes in a way that the movie doesn't let itself breathe in a lot of instances. I was definitely ready for this, I think. But that is a subjective thing, and I will definitely agree that this is still victim to the structural problems of the movie. As is the scene, of them on the bus, him having the Coca-Cola for the first time. I love the overhand way that he drinks it. Like he's drinking out of a water jug. Did you notice that?
Yeah. I didn't. No, I guess I didn't pay attention to it.
Yeah. Like he doesn't understand that it's you grip an underhand, dog. And the party girls and him telling him like, oh, you've forgotten the face of your fathers. And Jake saying, you probably just shouldn't talk in my world.
I did really, really like that.
It's very strange, right? Because there are times in the books where Roland will comment on the decadence of Keystone Earth, right? Saying like, oh, you're wasting everything. Your gunslingers are lax and weak, etc., and all of that. You're look at how abundant paper and sugar is, etc., on down the line. Roland seems like the last person to either want to or have standing to comment on somebody else's, let's say, sexual habits and tendencies.
Oh yeah, there's definitely that.
Yeah, he is not a horn dog at all in these movies, but it is also, like, again, one of those differences. But we're dedicating a lot of time to like a cutaway line, which is just like, yeah, Roland's no, Jake is right. Roland just better not talk. Nobody speak, nobody get choked. Okay, like that's what you're dealing with here. And the movie kind of picks up here because we have Walter, killing Aura, after chastising her for comforting the dying, saying like, oh, a seer who lies. It's like a goat who something. I didn't write down the line. Finding out they go to Keystone Earth, and things pick up and enter kind of our end of second act, beginning of third act, as Jake goes and talks to the homeless man that warned them before, and gets a little bit more details. Like, yes, this is a man who was taken to, he lost the shine, and they track by the shine, so that's how he can stay beneath the radar. And Jake gets a vision of what happened to him, noticing the Sombra vans. We haven't seen Sombra before, and also seeing a picture of the Dixie Pig, which helps them, locate where this is going to be. Ultimately, they get to Jake's house, where they stumble into a trap that Walter has left, hoping to spike Jake's psychic, response, so they can, so it'll raise on their meters. And that trap is, just kind of leaving a little mental video of, his mom dying. It's kind of upsetting. Like, this is an okay scene. Like, walking into your childhood bedroom and seeing an outline where your mother burns on your floor is upsetting, right? You can put yourself in that in that frame of mind, as Roland, tries to tell him, like, hey, don't like just feel the pain. Don't look into what he left for you, because that's exactly what he wants. Like, what do you guys think of this emotional moment or payoff?
This is fine. Like, I think this is average, right? Like, this is well, mechanically works well in the movie. I find it hard to care at this point. Like, Jake didn't seem to really care about his mom a lot in this movie to begin with. Yeah. And now when he gets here, the actor, Tom Holloway? Am I saying that right?
Let me look up here. Tom Taylor.
I don't think he's particularly good at emoting, like I mentioned at the very beginning. So this whole thing seems like, I think Idris is doing a good job, but like Tom is just kind of mutely staring throughout this thing. Again, it's average.
Yeah, he's doing kind of like a flat sob, and I can read that as like a bunch of different ways. How about you, Evan?
Yeah, I don't know. It's really strange, because I remember having a much more overall positive impression of this movie when I was watching it, and now sitting and looking back at my notes and no, it's not you guys at all. It's just like I'm looking at my notes and I'm thinking about what actually did and didn't happen in the movie, and it's like, yeah. I just, like, at this point, like, I don't mean to be a bummer, but just like every fucking scene we bring up, it's like, yeah, this was another one that could have been really great.
Well, I mean, it feels like necessary. It feels workmanlike. Like, they have to have this moment where, like, okay, well, obviously she's the mother. Jake nominally cares about her, so she has to die. Like, they could have made it surprising,
and like this scene was, it was good for the type of scene that it was.
Yeah.
But just in the structure of the movie, like, I don't like it. Like, yeah, it could have been surprising, and they didn't do that. It was just kind of like it could have been. This movie could have been such a great movie, and they just went through the motions so many times.
Speaking of going through the motions, they get to the requisite end of second act. I'm not friends with you anymore, man. Turbulence, right?
Oh, Jesus Christ! Even when I was watching the movie, I was pissed off at that.
Like, there has been no conflict between you up to this point. It has just been Jake trying to convey information to Roland, and Roland saying, "All right, I'll help you." To where they get to the point. So what they're nodding toward is, Jake is taking this tragedy and trying to turn it into understanding that there is something greater. There is a greater loss that awaits everybody on the back of this loss that he felt for himself. He is disgusted with Roland for only being motivated by vengeance, right? He has disgusted that Aura was right, that he really, is no longer a gunslinger, that he is not dedicated to protecting. He is not dedicated to trying to win a war. He has declared defeat, and he is only very selfishly looking for vengeance. And, down to the point where, like, instead of comforting Jake and trying to tell him, like, hey, we're going to make this, we're going to do what we can to make sure that this is right, Roland kind of tone deafly, like, leans over and says, I'll kill him for both of us, which might not be what he wants to hear. Like, but instead, the way that this presents is like, I'm not cool with you. And then 2 minutes later, you recite a poem for me, and now I'm cool with you.
That's exactly what I'm always looking forward to in father figures is literally just poetry. Just give me your best poem, Dad.
Yeah, tell me about hands and eyes and killing and hearts.
I mean, I don't know if any of the listeners are gonna know about this, but I had to step away from the recording for a little bit to put my 2.5-year-old to bed, and I read some really graphically violent poetry, and little dude just nodded off. I think everybody's looking for that out of their father figure. And I mean, I aim to be nothing if not a father figure.
Right. Oh, you got to put that qualifier on it. Tempers expectations.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this, like we alluded to, this is papered over by Roland teaching him the gunslinger creed and teaching him to shoot a little. Like they shoot one bottle. He says, "You're a gunslinger now, but the shine is your weapon. The guns are mine." Like, okay.
Yeah, that was some goddamn bullshit.
It was so perfunctory.
Dumb.
Like,
yeah. We have to put it in the movie somewhere. So we've already done it once. I guess we need to do it again with Jake. But where what works?
Yeah.
Yeah.
God forbid we develop this at all. Let's just have a character say it's true.
Sure.
Man. So they decide, hey, we're going to gird for war, and what's a better place to do that than to reenact the gun store robbery from the Drawing of the Three. This works out a little bit more, straightforward than it does in the book. Like, there is not some kind of plot with wallets and whatever. They just walk in and Roland draws his gun and says, "Give me all the 45 ammo you have," even though it's a 44. Sorry.
I don't know enough about guns to have caught that.
It's no, I'm honestly not angry about that. Like, whatever, 45. People know that as a big gun. That's fine.
That's Dirty Harry's gun. So everybody's gonna know that. So.
Of course, yeah. I mean, Clint Eastwood. What else are you gonna do? Have to do the needful. But yes. So they stage a straight up robbery, and our good buddy Walter decides to body jack this person using Black 13. The clerk, have him shoot at Roland against his own will as Roland runs around and is tormented. This is where Walter tries to torment Roland, saying like, "Hey, did you tell Jake what happened to the old crew? Did you let him know that everybody who walks with you dies by my hand?" etc. As Roland is telling him to show himself, he passes by a poster of Rita Hayworth. Did you guys notice that?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I got an elbow in the ribs on that one. So.
Yeah. I don't know.
Was this? I feel like this was probably earlier in the movie, but one thing that I did have in my notes was when Walter said to Roland, "Everyone who is it everyone who uses portals with you dies?"
Everybody who walks with you. I don't think there's ever a mention of portals.
I have a note about that, and I have like some memory of just like there being a ridiculous just everyone who uses portals with you dies, and it's like, why didn't you just say now? Why didn't you just say now you're thinking with portals? Like that's what you wanted to say. Like it. Yeah. Maybe I wrote that down apropos of nothing or misheard or misinterpreted something, but just
I don't recall that. The line as presented would have made me very angry. And I would have certainly made a note of it. So let's yeah. Regardless, he has all of the ammo that he could need, but Jake has been taken away. We cut back to the divertoir, where Jake has been taken through the Dixie Pig and into the chair like right away. So like immediately, all sense of distance, all sense of kind of like import. There's no weight to this. It's just like, hey, we've taken the kid idol and we've put it on the pedestal where he needs to go. Walter tests him with his little Fitbit, with his wearable. That we saw this earlier. Like we saw it with the kids living in the suburb kind of thing.
Yeah, like, my notes say evil Fitbit.
And then he goes to deal with Roland, saying this line, which I think is a little bit too much. He tells everybody, he tells Pimley and the others, have a nice apocalypse, as Jake fights back, and his anger over the proceedings causes a beam to hit the tower, making New York's barrier get weaker, and we see the monsters appearing in the red sky above. This shootout in the Dixie Pig is fine. Like, again, as action scenes go, I don't think there are any real stinkers in this. I wish the Dixie Pig was a more logical kind of space, as is presented in the books. Like, I read it more as like a small restaurant where everybody kind of gathered. Here, it's like an entire underground civilization. Did you guys have a different read? Like, is there a more charitable look at like the Dixie Pig as a space, especially as Roland fights through it?
No. This seems like a corridor from like, I don't know, from like the Daredevil Netflix series or from like the Old Boy movie, right? Yeah. Like, it just seems like it's just literally just a place for somebody to fight. Like, yeah. Hey, we need to make our headquarters. Excuse me, we need to make our headquarters into a cool place. How about it just like a straight long hallway that you can fight through?
It looks like a Half-Life 2 stage.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I'll go with that.
I was actually going to make the Half-Life 2 comparison because I forgot until I was looking at the show notes that this scene took place in the Dixie Pig. Like, it was just such a faceless setting for an action sequence.
Yeah.
And like the Half-Life 2 comparison was about as charitable as I could be.
Yeah. Well, there's a part where he gets thrown out the window and kills Sayer and then comes back inside for his fight with Walter. Like, that's in the portal room, wherever it is. Even the part that is nominally supposed to be the restaurant or like the place where people would actually like get service appears very Half-Life 2-y to me.
Yeah.
Half-Life 2-y, the third sequel to Banjo-Kazooie. It goes in a weird place. Yeah.
I thought it was going to be the weird prequel to Life with Louie. So
like, you mean Life with Kazooie?
There you go.
Oh man,
that was a bad joke, and I apologize for it.
It's fine. I think earlier I said I've said a lot of dumb stuff this episode. All of this culminates in the big action scene, the showdown between Roland and Walter. Where it's Roland and his guns, which have been shown not to work, against Walter and his telekinesis. Grabbing onto the shards of glass that fall from the window above him, using that as both a shield and as projectiles against him. Okay, okay, fine. Wish I didn't see this in the trailer, etc. My fault. Bad on me. Blah.
I mean, it's not really your fault. Like, because these movies have to stop putting all of their good bits in trailers at some point. Like, Autumn and I like to used to love to like sit down and like watch a bunch of trailers all in a row. Like, that was a cool thing to do until trailers started getting to be about 3.5 minutes long. Mm-hmm. So we would finish one and we'd be like, guess we don't need to see that movie. On to the next.
This is like
I don't think this is your fault at all.
Yeah, this is a reference that I think that you're going to appreciate, Jeremy. The Days of Future Past. I had to be very careful when I said that. The Days of Future Past, either teaser trailer or like the actual trailer, that was very talky. It was just very solemn, and I think it was Xavier talking to Magneto or something like that. That was very good. Like, that is what I wish a lot of trailers would be. I wish that the trailer for this was more solemn and would have sold this more as like, a mystery than as a straight up action thing.
That's what I kept coming back to, is that this felt like an action movie that was shoved into what should not have been an action movie.
But Evan, it's called The Gunslinger. He's got to shoot stuff.
It's technically called The Dark Tower.
Man. It's a fine thing. I'm not the person who's going to rag on the quality of CGI, because like, whatever, like, there's so many other things wrong with this. But there's one particular CGI stunt where Walter uses his telekinesis to pin Roland down, to like hit him with a beam, like like an I-beam or whatever, like a support. That is very obviously like they have this very abrupt cut from Idris Elba to a CGI puppet that will be thrown around by this. And it seems super trashy and super weightless.
It feels like this was the because I know this movie was reshot and recut quite a bit, and I saw a couple of reviewers remarking that Jake seemed like he aged dramatically throughout the movie, and this really feels like this was like tacked on at the last minute. Like that's what this scene feels like to me.
Yeah, it's well, that could have been the effects of the machine that he was in that was sucking out his will to live.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
No, not really.
Let's go with it.
I'm not going to be an apologist for that. But that's a good observation. I would have to go back.
Cole wins the no prize.
Oh, jeez. The way that Roland wins the fight is, we've seen that Walter can grab all the bullets out of midair. He can stop them in front of him. And we see Roland attempting to do these bank shots off of the metal around him. And he uses that against Walter to trick him into holding one bullet that he has ricocheted and then bouncing the other bullet off of the wall and then off of the bullet that is being held to hit him in the chest. I don't know why he couldn't have done this before. Because there's nothing special that happens to Roland in this time. Like, he has the opportunity now to do this. It seems like a very anticlimactic way to have this major character die. Like, yes, it is cool. It speaks to how badass Roland is, bouncing a bullet off of a bullet, off of another surface. Fine and cool. I don't know that I like this as, like, the killing master stroke. Am I wrong?
No, it feels like an extremely slick and cheesy thing to do to one of the most interesting villains that I've ever read about, and that's fine. Like it's a 95-minute movie that probably will never get a sequel, and maybe in 15 years we'll get a reboot called The Tower and get some real stuff going. But until then, like this is what we got, and I hate to sound so checked out. Like if the listeners are out there thinking like, wow, Jeremy feels like he just hates this movie. I don't necessarily like hate it so badly as there's not even enough in it to hate. It just all feels hollow. And this is like the supreme example of that, of this like weird trick shot to kill Walter, who is, again, one of my favorite villains in literature. Like he's a badass. Not even a badass. Like he's a really interesting villain in the series. And now we have this.
Yeah. So Walter's end in the actual series, we've already spoiled so much about the books. We can address this and make the comparison. It's no more dignified than this. We get a little bit more backstory on him that ends up working out fine, right? Like it gives a little bit more, but like he is very much like, what is it? TV trope says dwarfed or something. Like he dies in order to show that a new villain is incredibly powerful. Right.
Yeah, it's not more dignified, but it's weightier.
Yeah.
And that's like I don't feel like Walter's end needs to be especially dignified, and there's a part of me that almost feels like it's better if it's not, but it does need to be substantial.
Yeah.
And this didn't feel like that.
No. And it's like not remarked upon. Like he falls through the other side of the portal. Roland frees Jake, and they, embrace. The threat to the tower is over. No attention is paid to the inhabitants, those children of the Divartois. In the middle of Thunderclap, one presumes, or as they call it, the Northern Wasteland, which is not the case, guys. Come on. Oh, and we get into the falling action. New York is in disarray after this horrible catastrophe that is echoed throughout the world. We get the moments of Roland getting a hot dog from a cart. Jeremy, you were angry about this before.
Not necessarily angry, just, like they couldn't get a Pepsi sponsorship.
Well, he's drinking from a red can. Like they're throwing shade at Pepsi. Come on, man.
I mean, like it doesn't matter. It's just they just pull this kind of from the books, and it like as a wrap up to this like weird 90-minute thing that I just watched that vaguely related to one of my favorite book series of all times.
Yeah.
It just seemed like a weird, I don't know. Like, I mean, at this point, I wouldn't have been surprised if Agent Coulson didn't show up and recruit Roland into the Avengers. Like, I was just up for anything at this point. Like, I was like, okay, what's gonna happen next? Like, and it's fine for what it is. Like, Jake's parents are dead. He doesn't really have anything else to do besides go wander with the weirdo guy that wants to turn him into something called a gunslinger and help him, protect himself against the Shine or something. So let's go.
Yeah.
Dark Tower 2. Let's go.
Now, see you next week, guys. Yeah. Now that their sole villain is dead. Yeah. Yeah. And so they decide, let's go back to Midworld. They go through the doors into a restaurant next to a shutter door that is painted with 2 roses, one big and one small. Dun dun dun. Credits roll. No post credits. Leave the theater now.
Thankfully, my theater just turned on the lights immediately.
Oh yeah.
Because a couple of people were trying to sit down, and I had looked it up beforehand. Like, I looked it up and knew that there was no post credit sequence. But they just flipped on the lights and were like, "Okay, everybody out. We got to get you guys out of here.
We got to cycle this." Yeah. If you're not using Run P, what are you doing with your life?
Yeah, true. I don't use that personally, but I'm very aware of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that'll tell you if there's a post credit. Yeah. And that is the Dark Tower movie. I just want to get this off now that we're in summer, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because it's quite late where we're at. We're officially gonna be about twice as long as the movie itself talking about the movie, which is fine. I expected it to be a little long. A gunslinger doesn't take the shot unless he knows what it's going to affect, right? Whether it's going to land, what it's going to accomplish, etc., and down the line. You don't waste a shot because the ammo is precious and you have no idea if there's going to be another one behind that, right? You don't know if you're going to hit something that is important to you. This took the shot and missed entirely, and I'm not sure if there's going to be another bullet behind it. And so we're just kind of stuck on the beach here with this substandard movie that has already kind of like faded away. I listen to other podcasts where they talk about movies and general geek stuff. The movie has kind of already become like this dismissive like punchline. I'm sad. I'm sad that we missed the opportunity. I wasn't looking forward to this for 10 years like a lot of people probably were. I was excited about it. I didn't know what to expect. Who knew? I went in with an open mind, even when I saw that the initial buzz was bad. I think the biggest victim of this, isn't any single person who worked on it. I think it is the potential for the rest of the franchise to maybe not get adapted, but to have any kind of like cultural cachet. This movie is always going to exist as it is, right? It is always going to be what they ended up putting out. And that's why you have to be sure what the shot is going to be before you take it. And I feel like they fucked up.
I feel like for as much complaining as I've done about this movie tonight, and I am sorry for that. I'm usually not much of a complainer kind of guy. Like, I usually try to keep things light and breezy.
Well, you care about this.
I do, and I probably care too much. But I think a lot of people out there care a lot about this series, and that means a lot to them. A lot of people like me grew up listening to it. Or listening to it or reading it or what have you. And just to see it all just wasted, right? Like, just to see it all come to this and it just be this kind of generic action movie with vague fantasy tie-ins, that just to see the potential wasted, which is, I think we've come back to over and over again, to see these things that I have a deep affection for just be kind of just made hollow, like just to not have any kind of meaning whatsoever. It's just kind of sad. And then to all of that be wrapped up into a movie that is basically forgettable, like just where we were almost struggling to finish out the conversation about it because we just kept, just derailing our conversation to talk about something else. Like, that's
more so than usual. More so than usual.
Yeah, that usually happens on these podcasts. But I think the important thing that I have to keep in mind, and this is an old Stephen King interview I read somewhere where he was telling a story about somebody else being interviewed. And I forget the name, so please forgive me, internet. But this author was having his books turned into a movie, and he said, "Aren't you going to worry that the movies are going to ruin the books?" And he kind of gestures behind him, and he's like, "My books are right there. Like the movie's not going to do anything to them." And that's what I have to keep in mind, and is that I hope that people see enough in this that aren't familiar with the books to seek it out and be like, what was this actually supposed to be? Because I think there's value in the series. It's just so much wasted potential. I can't help but be a little bummed out about it.
Yeah. Agreed. Evan?
Yeah. I mean, that kind of covers it. Like, I keep coming back to the comparison to Star Trek Into Darkness, where it's just a property that I have so much love and affection for, tackling a story that I have so much specific love and affection for, and just dropping the ball in senseless ways. Although I do have to say, I enjoyed this substantially more than I enjoyed Star Trek Into Darkness.
Yeah.
That was an actively bad time. I was disappointed, but it didn't feel like a waste of life energy to watch it.
No.
And there's so much about it that could have been so good. And I think that's kind of where most of my enjoyment of the movie came from, is just conjecture on, like, man, they were so close. And there's so much that they went for that I wanted to like. And there's so much that they did where I feel like if it had been Ron Howard doing it, it would have worked. Or like it felt like the scope of the movie exceeded the reach of the people making it. And when you're dealing with something with the scope of, like, fucking the Dark Tower, like, you need some pretty hefty ability.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't there.
No. And so if you listen to this and you've been incensed at us, being harsh about this work,
tweet at Gary Butterfield.
Please don't tweet at Gary. Yes, he has nothing to do with this. Although he will be on the next episode. I'm excited about that. Oh no. I was going to be more conciliatory. Like, this is, we personally are not alone in this. I think that I went into this hoping that the negative reviews were going to be something that reflected the opinions of people who were not kind of like in the know. Like, oh, like maybe this will fail for a wider audience, but will succeed for fans. I didn't go in prepared for the idea that it might fail for both. We're not alone in this on either side, either, talking about this as a movie or talking about this as the Dark Tower. However, all of that said, if you enjoyed this walk with God, we wouldn't take it from you if we could, I don't really want to hear an awful lot of like, hey, you guys missed or you guys forgot. I've seen it twice and I feel like I paid a lot of attention to it. Who knows? Maybe we did a bad job, but like the book might be closed on this. And that is part of the bummer, and that is a bummer that both of us can share. So not apologizing for our views, not apologizing for making you angry, but hopefully we can make each other angry in a way that helps us grow. Well, thank you, Evan and Jeremy, for coming on the show for this marathon recording session, for a longer than usual episode of the show for this momentous occasion, these books being taken into a new medium. Evan, where can people find you if they want to find you?
You can find me on Twitter. I am at Mr._Harder, both words all spelled out. You can also find me on Instagram at Very Good Serial Reviews. I've got some fun stuff coming up with that. And if you're in the Chicagoland area, sometime around Halloween, I don't know the date quite yet, but there's going to be a Halloween show at the Beat Kitchen, and I will be performing a set as Sad Paul Stanley as Black Sabbath.
Oh, nice.
And that shit's gonna be fucking dumb.
Two lenses. Nice. Jeremy, how about you?
You can find me on Twitter at JG Greer. If you saw the scene with Jake, seeing a burned out impression of his mom on the floor and thought, I want to see a whole TV show dedicated to that, you might be interested in my podcast about the TV show Supernatural.
Hey, Jeremy, what's that podcast called?
It's called Monster of the Week, and you can find it at MOTWcast or monsteroftheweek.cool because the internet has great TLDs nowadays. That's me and my buddy Chris. We talk about every single episode. It's a riotous time, and I want to apologize in advance if you follow that Twitter because it's a TV show. It's about hunks, and sometimes the hunks have sex with werewolves, and we have to talk about it. And it gets a little wild on the Twitter sometimes. So.
Oh, that's great! I'm so happy that you guys like. It seems like you're getting some getting some juice off of that, getting some energy, some success. It's
like it's a weird thing because it's definitely the most interactive show. Like it's the show that gets the most like I hesitate to say fan listener interaction.
Yeah.
So we get a lot of people talking about it. Apparently a lot of people I knew that going in that a lot of people like Supernatural, but yeah, it's a fun show and like there's a lot of fans of it and it creates like we had a friend of ours just to plug him real quick, Jake Lionheart on Twitter. He just made a mixtape based on the music for our podcast.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, but he also does like raps for Dark Souls and Bloodborne and all kinds of stuff. So that dude's crazy talented. But yeah, like it's just that kind of thing. Like people love the show and it gets wild, and then all of a sudden there's literally weeks of vor chat, and because we can't stop talking about it.
I've got to jump in here and say I've listened to not all of Monster of the Week, but probably like 80% of it. I've fallen behind recently. I've only watched maybe 9 or 10 episodes of Supernatural, so even if you don't watch the show, it is just a tremendous podcast.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate that. Yeah,
absolutely. But it's oh my God, it's so good.
I would be very curious because my little sister loves Supernatural. Like she's gone to like the conventions and seen like the dudes, the hunks as it were. So I'm curious if she listens. I know she listens to some of the stuff that I do, which it's impossible for me not to see her as like this 3-year-old little girl that's super weird, even though she's going to college or whatever. Mm-hmm. I'd be curious if she listens to your show.
We did our Facebook demographics are pretty hilarious. It's mostly 13 to 18-year-old girls. Like that's the only place that I can see demographics. So like I don't know I know most of the people on our Twitter because like a lot of them are Duckfeed fans or my Twitter friends or whatever. Like I know a lot of those people, but like our Facebook kind of blew up and it has like almost 2,000 likes, which is insane.
Oh, that's awesome.
None of them interact with us at all. So I don't know what they're doing. But like just looking at the demographics, it's like 80% of them are named Caitlin for some reason.
That's great.
If Caitlin Ross is listening to the show, maybe, I don't know. But yeah, it's pretty bizarre. And
I don't know that she would if she would appreciate me sharing her name, but I also don't think she's on Facebook, so.
It's a weird show. Like, yeah, it's weird. That's all I'll say.
Here's the thing, and I know we're going way long on this. Even at a very young age, she knew that there was a weird side to that fandom, and she was set on avoiding it like the plague.
So I started watching. Supernatural came out, and I watched the first episode. Right, like I've been watching it since the very beginning, and it does have that weird fandom. Doing this podcast now, all of a sudden, I'm saying stuff like, okay, I get it. I understand why Destiel is a thing, which is a ship name for 2 of the main characters of the show. And I'm like, what is wrong with me? How have I gotten here? And how do I get back to just normal Jeremy?
This is great.
It takes too long. Yeah. Like, but if you like hunks and you like bombs burning on the roof, then you should check out Monster of the Week.
God, I really want to start a podcast with Autumn that is just about Monster of the Week, but not about Supernatural.
Behind the scenes.
No, not behind this. Just an analysis of the podcast that doesn't talk about the show at all.
It talks about the podcast, but not the show.
It just kind of talks about like Jeremy's descent into wherever you are right now with that show.
It's I mean, she's there with me. Like she told me because I was watching the episodes without her, and she's like, no. You have to watch all of the episodes with me when you make notes and everything. So I was like, okay, cool.
That's
so
great.
She's all in it.
Well, never mind. I guess Autumn's dead to me.
That's great. No judgments. No judgments.
No, clearly not.
Oh, gosh. And you can find me on a bunch of shows over at Duckfeed.tv, where this show itself is hosted. Also on Twitter at Cole Ross, KOLEROSS. We're going to be back next time in 2 weeks talking about The Mist. And then 2 weeks after that, strangely enough, talking about another Stephen King movie that is related to The Tower. Who knows how well it'll be connected. Talking about the It movie, which, I don't know, that trailer is pretty baller. It looks really good. At least to me. Who knows?
Yeah, no, I am apprehensive. Like I want it to be good. It looks really good. I don't trust it.
It's after this, who can trust?
Yeah.
Is anybody gonna hang up on this podcast and watch Mr. Mercedes, because that's premiering tonight?
What? That's weird.
Yeah, there's a TV show called Mr. Mercedes that's coming out tonight that's based on that, like the Stephen King thing. So
that is a Stephen King book I've never read.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, it's good. Like the trilogy is actually really, really good. Like it's a weird. I don't know why I keep talking. It's so late. I'm sorry.
Let's cut it off. Thank you so much for listening, especially for this extra long episode.
Patreon. Check out Duckfeed on Patreon.
Thank you.
Really great stuff going on over there. There's some shows that I love a great deal that I would love to keep happening that only can happen, including this one, because of people supporting the network on Patreon.
Yeah, Heartbeat City. That we put out the pilot for that. That was a lot of fun to do.
Heartbeat City's so good.
So good.
I felt very unqualified to be on that, but it was a lot of fun to talk serious. Yeah. It's a very straight-laced show. Yeah.
No, Heartbeat City's great. Days of Future Cast, Monster in My Podcast. This one is fun. I'm a huge REM fan, so File Underwater, I fucking mainline that shit.
They're good podcasts for it.
Yeah.
if you're into any of this, go to Patreon, check it out. It's good content, good people. There are worse places to send your money.
Well, thank you. And so until next time, long days and pleasant nights.